it's only going to get worse from here. Despite the whole winter's never going to end thing, the 1996 New Jersey State girls soccer champions decide to start their spring training early with an impromptu cardio session. Callie encounters an old flame. Van proves goalies never say die. Most of the adults intentionally commune in the sharing shack. And Lottie baby, I hear the blues are calling for tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Mercy. You are watching the Yellow Jackets podcast, The Antler Queens. I am Kelly, and today we are covering It Chooses. Hey guys, what's up? What's up? This is kind of an early recap. Not early in the day. It's actually about midnight right now. But we're getting a jump start. I'm Kelly. You are watching or listening to the Antler Queens podcast. And today I am here with a really awesome guest co-host, Fey Fire. If you've all heard of her, because if you haven't already been watching her, you've heard me talk about her and sing her praises. You've seen her if you watch the live after shows, you've seen her in the chat. She's always there. So I'm really psyched that I finally got her to join me. So, hey, Fey Fire, what's up?
Hello. Hey, Kelly. Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me on. I am happy to be here. I'm Erin, aka Fey Fire, and I'm just so happy to be here and chatting about episode 8. This was a crazy episode, and I'm excited to go into all the details with you.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, make sure she covers all kinds of stuff. What are some of the shows that you cover?
I have covered, well, before this, I covered Servant, which also had Lauren Ambrose in it. I've covered House of the Dragon, The Essex Serpent, Raised by Wolves. I did a lot of content on Raised by Wolves, and pretty much anything Arthurian I tend to cover. I used to cover a show called Cursed, and I've done stuff on the Green Knight, and I'll be covering the Winter King, which is a new show that'll be coming out later this year. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am going to I'll link to your channel in the show notes. But guys, I'm also going to include a direct link to she's got this amazing video, The Ancient Origins of the Antler Queen. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like that's how I discovered her channel. I watched this video. I'm like, I need to contact this chick right away because this video was just mind blowing.
Thank you so much. It was
You're welcome.
it was like when I started working on that video, it just kept growing and more. I think it's like almost a half an hour long, but it's, yeah. When I was writing it, I was like, somehow this became like my magnus opus or magnum whatever you say, magnum
Yeah.
opus. And yeah, it just became like I just loved it. Like I was really proud of it, and then I'm glad other people like it also. So thank you if you watched it.
A whole lot of people did, and if you didn't, watch it and thank me later. Um, so it's a little sad because this is the penultimate season 2 episode.
Mhm.
So in a little while, we're gonna be without Yellow Jackets.
We'll be on a long hiatus.
I know, I know. Well, we did have a long hiatus in between seasons 1 and 2.
Mhm.
I don't know when they were planning on coming back for season 3. Obviously, it's gonna be later than intended because, because of the WGA strike.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's we can do it.
Yeah, we've
We
been,
can do it.
we've all survived difficult things over the past few years, so we
Yes.
can come together as a fandom to entertain ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Um and I'm going to be covering some of you might already know this, but I'm starting a new show, a new podcast, which will also be on YouTube with Lexi Luthor and Jade. We are covering, it's called H Black Queens, and we are covering the show Wentworth. which is one of my favorite shows of all time. If you like really dark shit with fucked up female characters like Yellow Jackets, I highly recommend it. It's a prison show. It's really dark and depressing, but it's so good. Um, it's an Australian show, but it's on Netflix.
I think my
It's
husband watched it.
okay.
So,
Yeah, it's amazing. It ended in 2021, I think. But there's 9 seasons, so there's a whole lot to cover.
Oh, wow.
Um, I also plan on covering the show Cruel Summer. So I'm gonna be once Yellow Jackets is done, I may take like a couple weeks off, just to take a breather, and then I plan on getting started with my other coverage, and I'll be adding other shows when I get time. But
Yeah, girl.
I got the podcasting bug, so
It's fun.
yeah, for
Well,
sure.
you and, Lexi and Jade are always enjoyable to listen to, so, even if I
Oh.
haven't watched Wentworth, I will at least listen to your podcast, so
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, they're a fun combo.
Mhm.
They're a fun combo
You guys do great
to
work
work with.
together. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Um, we all got teal hoodies to wear because they wear, like, their prison uniforms are they wear teal. They all like, most of them wear teal hoodies. Well, their color is teal, and, most of them wear hoodies, so we all got matching teal hoodies to wear, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. Um, well, let's okay, first of all, before we get started, I wanted to shout out the director and writers. This episode was directed by Daisy von Scherlermeyer, who directed Doomcoming and Friends, Romans Countrymen, and she had another one that she directed, right?
I think
Was
so, I can't think of it offhand, but she's done a few.
oh, actually no, this was her third. Okay. Um, so this is her second penultimate episode,
Mhm.
and, I noticed a lot of similarities between this and Doomcoming, so it was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, the writers on this, in addition to our showrunners, Ashley Lyle and Bart Nickerson, are Sarah L. Thompson, who the episodes that she worked on are, she's been credited with The Dollhouse, Doomcoming, Digestif, Two Truths and a Lie, and of course this one. And Liz Fang, who she's an executive producer, so she works on every episode, but her as far as being her writing credits go, she's listed for Bear Down, Flight of the Bumblebee, Old Wounds, which one of my favorite episodes, Burial, and It Chooses. So I think Liz Fang might currently be my favorite writer on the show. 'Cause she's like the episodes that she has writing credits on are pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Um, I love the Frasier reference in the episode description. For those of you who are a little younger and don't know the reference, um, I hear the blues are calling for tossed salad and scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
Mercy. That's from the Frasier theme song.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that. I'm from Seattle. I could have freaking caught that.
I almost sang it when I was reading the episode description. I almost sang it.
Oh, you should have, because I think I've heard somebody else say, "Oh, I love the Frasier reference," but I still didn't catch what it was. But oh my gough, now that you've said it again, I was like, "Yep, that's."
It's so funny. I still don't understand the van proves goalies never say die thing.
Maybe because she didn't draw the queen card.
It just seems weird though that they called her out for that, you know?
You know, these I can't say that I love the episode descriptions the way they're written. They're so crazy sometimes that it's like,
They are
okay.
kind of weird.
Yes, but there's a lot to unpack with every single one.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So this one started out with a voiceover by Travis, Kevin Albus.
Mhm.
I always find the previously on Yellow Jackets voiceover is really interesting. Um, so man, we open with a fucked up Lottie. Like I don't even know how she's alive at this point. Um,
Yeah.
Misty was kind of like the voice of the audience, I think, in this scene because like Lottie's peeing into a bowl and it's like she's peeing blood, and Misty helps her get down into bed, and she's taking care of her, and Mari's like complaining about how it smells, and
Mhm.
Misty just goes off on her like,
Yeah.
"Thank you."
I was like, yes. I know. I not everyone. I know Mari's not the most popular character, and I must admit that I am on the I don't like Mari baby train. But she lost me when she stayed back at the cabin and Shauna was out there at the lake pulling the moose
Yeah,
out. So, but
yeah.
yeah. Mari. But I did feel bad for her when she dropped the pee because let me tell you, that's not fun.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just not. And they're all stressed out. Like that moment of her kind of breaking down. At least she was having that private moment by by herself in the by the ladder in that little cozy room or whatever. And
Yeah,
we kind of
yeah.
got to see like a break in that. We got to see some of her real personality because she's usually just kind of in the background saying sassy things, but we don't ever see any like kind of heart and soul from her. And so even just seeing her break down and cry was, interesting for that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I I used to always say that Mari and Aquila were the Statler and Waldorf of Yellow Jackets, but now I think it's kind of it's mostly just Mari. She's Statler and Waldorf.
My
She's just
neighbors are
sitting up in
watching
the
Yellow Jackets right now.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it.
So funny.
um, but yeah, so as Misty is kind of comforting Lottie, she starts kind of seeing like some random visions that are just kind of all scattered.
Mhm.
Um, I one thing that I had in mind throughout this whole episode is that I really hope that they flash forward a little bit in next week's episode
Mhm.
so that Courtney Eaton has more than like 2 lines.
Well, I think there was some purpose behind it. And it's kind of like when in Blood Hive in season 1 when she smashed her head on the window and she sort of had like I always equated that to like she was kind of opening her third eye.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was another example of that beating because um it was like an ego death in a sense. Um but also in like some like druidic traditions and that kind of thing, like when you have something really major traumatic, an injury to the body or an injury to the mind, or an injury to the pride, that's like one step closer to actually becoming like a druid. And so I feel like this was kind of an example of that with Lottie's beating, and she kept having those sort of the visions flashing in and out where she was seeing the things that were happening around her like in the house, um but obviously she's upstairs so she's kind of just incoherent sort of. I don't know, it was really interesting. I feel like it was
Yeah.
an extension of that though, where she was accessing more of her um mental like abilities.
Yeah. And
I'm
I
sorry,
mean,
I'm so distracted by the music, the Yellow Jackets music. I'm sorry. I'm
that's
just
so funny.
laughing so hard.
Um, no, also she probably also has like some broken ribs,
Mhm,
and so talking is probably not easy at all.
mhm.
Um, I mean, like when I was in my bad car accident that I've referenced a few times, like I did not want to talk to anybody. Like it was to the point where I got like I would not watch anything funny on TV,
Yeah.
because I just like laughing was the most painful thing in the world.
Mhm.
Um, and I just like I mouthed things to I my husband had to practically read my lips because I just like would not speak above the quietest whisper.
Mhm.
So I'm sure she probably like I'm sure talking is probably pretty tough for her right now.
Yeah.
She's banged up. She looks bad.
I mean, her everything's swollen and, bless Misty's heart, like, we get to really see like, Misty, she is so she is on 2 separate ends of the spectrum, but she's there. She is this caretaker, but she's also like a serial K word,
Yeah.
like but as a caretaker, she is so valuable, and she like nobody can compete with her abilities. And Lottie's really lucky to have her. Like, there's nobody better that you would want on your side. And um, those scenes of Misty like sleeping next to her, like I just loved that moment where they're laying there and Lottie's kind of getting agitated and Misty had she had to reach over and put her glasses on. And for some reason that little like that I know that I know that feeling because I can't do anything without my glasses. And so like as a mom, even when you're, maybe have your baby sleeping next to you or you have to get up, every couple hours to go running out, just that like the extra 5 seconds of having to like put on your glasses is just like I don't know. It's just a fun little detail that I could totally, relate to. But that's the thing. She's laying there right next to her, anticipating her every need. She's right there for her. And that was really touching, to see because
Yeah.
we've spent the last like well actually like almost this entire season really um questioning ourselves about Misty and like her, who she really is and what she's really capable of. But like we also see that she's really capable of like some tender, kindness. And she's not just a heartless person. She does really care about Lottie, or at least like about all of, her girls, like making sure they're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it too, I mean, it probably stems from her guilt over Crystal.
Mhm.
Um, like she pulled it together with Shauna, um, because, she was like she already lost Crystal. She talked Ben out of jumping to his death because she was like she didn't wanna lose somebody she didn't wanna feel responsible for somebody else dying.
Mhm.
Not that she would have been responsible for that, but, so I think she's like we actually like I'm I made my husband start watching Yellow Jackets, and we're just doing 1 episode a week,
Mhm.
and today we watched the season 2 premiere, and I noticed something that I never noticed before, and that's the shirt that adult Misty is wearing in the premiere with it's like a blue long sleeve t-shirt, and it's got, like, little flowers on it.
That Delia's
I
shirt. Delia's
What's
Lucky
that?
shirt. It looks like it's from a Delia's catalog.
Oh, yeah, no, it totally does, you're right, that's so funny. Um, I swear to God, that looks like the shirt that Crystal's wearing.
Oh, that's a really good catch. Yeah.
Yeah, I never noticed
Interesting.
it before, and I was watching, I was like, I think, like I mean, it's hard to tell because it's dark,
Mhm.
so but it's like the little things that are all over Crystal's shirt might be different, but it
Mhm.
looks like they're the same kind of flower, so I think it's actually she might actually be wearing Crystal's shirt in the present day.
Interesting. And that shirt's like kind of purple also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, foreshadowing to heliotrope.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Also
Um,
in that scene, I don't think it's talked about enough, but Misty is a cornflake girl. She's got a box of
yeah.
cornflakes down in her, down in the downstairs apartment where she's at with Shauna. Nobody
She is
talks
the
about
ultimate cornflake girl.
definitely.
I think most of them Mari's a cornflake girl. I think the rest of them are mostly raisin girls.
Yeah.
but yeah, Misty, Van, I think might be a little more cornflakey.
Van will take what she can get.
Yeah, true. I think Van and Aquila both kind of straddle that line, but
Mhm.
yeah, like Natalie's the ultimate raisin girl, and Misty's the ultimate cornflake girl for
Mhm.
sure. um, but more purple foreshadowing. I don't know if you I think quite a few people picked up on this, but in the season 1 pilot, in the pilot episode, Natalie's actually wearing purple at the rehab center.
Oh, yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
When
Yeah.
we first see Juliette Lewis, she's got like a long purple cardigan on. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
You know,
Yeah.
her character, like, I know we'll probably talk about her more later, but she's evolving so much. And I've noticed like over these past few episodes where she's really embracing the purple, she's um I feel like she's tapping into some of that um the knowledge that she gained over those other, stints she had in rehab. Because I think she said she's been 5 times or something like that. And
Yeah.
the teachings and all of that, when she was there probably were pretty irrelevant to her. She wasn't like taking them in. But I feel like as she's been there with Lottie, especially even in, I want to say in episode 7, when Lottie, like, she's sitting there, she said something, oh, the body can't hold on to memory during trauma or something like that. And that's just like really like really absorbing everything that she says and really like taking it in, and then she's starting to really implement that, with the other girls, with the other women. But it's just kind of funny how she's probably got a lot of that wisdom that she's picked up from all of those, experiences, that she just wasn't, she's like, oh, I don't care, didn't implement it. But now that she's like actually using it, it's like she's probably a wealth of knowledge. She's probably got more than Lottie. So maybe
Yeah.
that's why.
I actually when when season 1 ended, I kind of like before season 2 started, I always felt like Natalie was I was worried for her because we were still thinking at the time like that Lottie was like this cult is this evil cult that's like just um completely malicious, and they're gonna hurt her, and
Mhm,
um but and I was worried for Natalie because they got her in such a vulnerable state. I'm like, she's gonna get sucked in.
mhm,
And she did. I mean, it's not the like the center of evil. It's not the evil epicenter that we thought it was, but yeah, she did get sucked in. I mean, she's the most sensitive out of all of them. She's the most sensitive and the most vulnerable
mhm,
for sure. Um, obviously she's got all of her rough edges, but she's she's the one who's got, she her 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 boundaries are a little fuzzy,
mhm,
and she's very like she projects this air of don't fuck with me. But I think so much of it is out of fear because she recognizes that she's sensitive and vulnerable
mhm.
and can easily like get absorbed into stuff like that. So I'm not surprised that she's kind of like taking it in so much.
Yeah.
Um but there's a lot of speculation that she's like just pretending, but I think she really is adapting to all this. I don't think she's being disingenuous.
There's only one moment that I suspected that she might be being disingenuous, and that was when the other women first arrived, and she went up and hugged Shauna. And for some
Yeah.
reason, the way that they filmed that shot, I was just like, she's whispering something to Shauna. She's telling her something in her ear right here. Like, it just,
Oh.
that's what that like screamed to me right there. I could be wrong because they haven't really elaborated on it much more. But that was just the vibe that I got, because those two aren't necessarily close. I mean, Nat is making a lot of changes, and so there's the chance that, yeah, maybe it was genuine, but for something about it, like just at that point, because Nat was still kind of like on the fence. That was right after Misty and Walter had, gotten there, and she was like, "Get out of here, I've got a plan going on," and whatever. So it's like, what was the plan,
Yeah.
And are you still working on that? Or did you say something to Shauna? But then who knows if things have changed also with all of the, especially this episode with Shauna, like having all basically just spilling the beans on everything, which ultimately like funnels down to the fact that she stole $50,000 from Natalie
Yeah.
and didn't, and she's known the whole time, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Yeah. That's, oh my God.
yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts on that scene when we get to it. Like,
Mhm.
I have very strong feelings.
Mhm.
And it comes up pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
yeah, the next thing that we see after after the Misty Mari Lottie scene is Aquila talking to Nugget. Ty comes over and says, "That thing is dead, Aquila." And we see that she picks it up, and we see that it actually is like a dried up mouse skeleton.
Mhm.
Definitely did not expect that.
I I started like that was kind of when they started to do the weird, like, did you notice the sort of weird shot with that, with like kind of the hazy, and that was kind of one of the first shots they had done like that in this episode, and I was like, okay, this is telling us something's weird, something's off in this situation. But yeah, I was not expecting dead nuggets.
Yeah.
Poor little
And
guy.
I think, like, I could be totally wrong on this, but I feel like I read that mice actually pretty much completely disintegrate shortly after they die. Um, I could be totally wrong on that. Like their skeletons just kind of like disintegrate into dust within like a few weeks or something.
I don't know.
Um, so when she found him, he could have been alive.
It's like he looked really like the way he was dry, and like, but he didn't have any fur. It was almost like he looked cooked or something. I don't know. You can see a little mouse kebab or something. I don't know. That's her comfort corpse, her own
Yeah.
comfort corpse. You get a comfort corpse. You get a comfort corpse.
Oh my god. Okay, that's it. Hang on a second. I need to oh shoot, I damn it, I can't change it. I was going to change my nickname, but oh
Kelly
man.
comfort corpse.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my
Say that
I
5
think that's
times fast.
yeah. I think Comfort Corpse is going to be my nickname for the live.
Yeah.
I'll have to explain it. People are gonna be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to.
Yeah. I'll just say that much.
Mhm.
Um, but so we go back to the present, and Shauna's like, everyone's coming in, they're still laughing, and still making jokes, and Shauna kind of kills the party by telling everyone the police found Adam's body. Um, and she says she's got to go, but Van is just like, why the hell is everyone being so secretive? Um, she realizes that there's more going on, and she wants to know about it, so she throws Shauna's keys away. So
I
she
love
can't
it.
leave. Um, but I don't think she would be getting very far either, and I'll explain more about that later. But
Interesting.
but so Van actually probably did her a favor. Um, so she's stuck there, and they're they're asking why, like they're pressing Shauna, why was Jeff calling you about this? because
Mhm.
they thought it was weird. Like, why is Jeff calling you to tell you that they found your dead boyfriend's remains? And she finally just spits it out that she told him.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because like their reactions to that are so strong, and I'm just like, "Oh, you have no idea what's coming."
Oh god. Yeah.
I'm like, "Just calm down, ladies, because you're
Mhm.
gonna be bringing it way up soon."
Mhm. This is a whole can of worms we're about to crack open here. Yeah,
Oh my
the
god.
everyone had first of all, Van throwing the keys was like I loved that because I've been waiting. I've had this weird theory. I'm like, there's going to be something with Van and the van. I'm like,
That's so funny.
there's something there. Like Shauna's overprotective of her van because she's going to be overprotective of Van later on or something. But no, that was the perfect. Just grab the keys and throw them, and that's perfect redhead behavior. No offense for a redhead, but again, I grew up. I have a redhead mom and a redhead daughter. That's redhead behavior right there.
That's so funny. I love
But
it.
I loved it. I That cracked me up, and yeah, that was it. It's just that their whole thing this episode, like all of that, because Shauna, that's her whole thing. She's a bit pathological, lies just kind of come naturally, and things have just literally stacked one on top of another on top of another. And she has so much that, like, it was just that was one piece. It was the camel that, or the straw that broke the camel's back was, well, why did Jeff call you about Adam? What does Jeff know? Now all of a sudden, hold on, and it's just a snowball of information.
Yeah, right. For
Mhm,
sure.
mhm.
Um, Really quick before I forget this, a little off topic, but I wanna bring it up before I forget. Um, so as I mentioned, my husband and I were watching season 2, episode 1 today, and something else that I noticed that stuck out that I never noticed before is in Adam's studio, there is a painting that he has off to the side. There are a couple of paintings that he has off to the side. One looks like a silhouette of somebody, um, but there's another one that's of a female. I swear to God, it looks like Callie.
Creepy.
Yeah, yeah.
So my
Um,
thought about the paintings is I don't think they're of Shauna. I think it's Adam's mother. Like I think Adam has like some crazy mom issues, like probably his mother died or something like that. And oh, maybe that's even the bone marrow thing. Hmm.
oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, I feel like that they might actually be paintings of his mother because there's so many of them and they were sort of all in like I don't want to say like provocative positions, but very like what's the word? Like candid, like her sleeping and just just not in any like clothing that we've seen Shauna in, or any encounters that they had with each other per se. So my thought was that like he might have because I have so many thoughts about Adam. Like literally, I have so many thoughts about him. But yeah, I think that might be the case that he was like, and that might be why he actually fixated on Shauna so much because I mean, he was really quite obsessed with her, and the lengths he was willing to go and like showing up at her house. And, even though he knew she was married, he was really like I feel like he pursued it much more than Shauna did. And knowing her circumstances, that's just not normal behavior. So I feel like there was, more to his reasoning.
Well, see, I still think we're gonna find out that he was, that he was a Yellow Jackets fanboy,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and, for 2 reasons. It would explain the obsession, first of all. Like, I think he may have discovered Shauna and, like, she was the one that he was, the most captivated by.
Hmm.
Um, but in season 1, when when Shauna is searching for her name online,
Mhm.
there is you see a Reddit post come up in like the search results,
Mhm.
and it says, "Are do you think any of the yellow jackets are single?" Um, and but there's one other thing in this in the season 2 episode 1 when Shauna gets his driver's license and his bill clip out of her safe,
Mhm.
she finds the key to his studio, and it's painted blue and gold,
Yeah.
um, which just seems really weird to me.
I guess I never put much thought into it. I just kind of assumed there was paint on it because he's an artist, but maybe there
Yeah,
is
that's true.
something more to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed too coincidental to me, and you could be right. It could just be, it could just be coincidental because
Mhm.
of him being an artist, but it just seemed a little too coincidental.
Yeah.
Um, but I also feel like there was also, I know they were trying to plant the idea of him being Javi in people's heads.
Mhm.
So that's likely the explanation behind the little animal carving that was in his apartment. But
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm guessing, but I also feel like there's a possibility that he may have, I don't know, maybe Shauna um brought it home with her or something and then just decided to put it on eBay or something, and he got a
Hmm.
hold of it, or
That would be
who
weird.
knows.
I
Yeah.
noticed that um his tattoo, which like I love this because the Adam is Javi theory is obviously, really pop. That was what kind of hooked me onto the show because that's what my first theory about it was. I was like, oh, Adam is Javi,
Yeah.
and then I started looking deeper and realized, oh, okay, they, debunked that one. But like, but once you kind of get to theory crafting, you really get hooked into a show. So anyways, but this episode, they really like they they definitely toyed with that theory so much and then at the end they really made sure it was dead in the water.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just loved how much they, yeah, kind of toyed with it even more. But they did it with the drawings, Javi's
Mhm.
drawings, because they looked a
Yeah.
lot like the tattoo that was on Adam's back. And then of
They
course
did.
they made mention of the tattoo. They're like, oh, the cheese grater. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I actually I did. I forgot to add them. I I got some screenshots of some of his drawings.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just adding them in right now. I mean, they're pretty. It's interesting because they're very reminiscent of the symbol, but it's like the sun and mountains.
Hmm.
Um, so there's one of them. There's a bird,
Hmm.
and then there's like a triangle, and then the circle. Um, so that's interesting. It's a really cute picture of a bird.
Yeah, he's a great little artist. Really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And then we see like the two little lines going through it.
Hmm.
Um, and you could almost argue like that the tail is the hook. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we see another one that's kind of like it's it almost looks like it could be. This one is really interesting actually because
Yeah.
it looks like just a triangle in the circle. But it looks like it could be, a mountain and the
And what
sun.
it's dripping is like it's like
Exactly.
blood. Yeah.
It's like dripping blood onto the wilderness.
Yeah, onto the wilderness. See,
And it
my
looks
whole
like
I
oh, I
feel
was
like
just gonna say, like, the circle almost kinda looks like an eye there too.
totally.
Yeah.
And the way that okay, so I've always kind of thought that because somebody's pointed out in the comments of my video and of a couple other channels that they believed that the symbol was slightly different in different drawings or different carvings.
Okay.
And so my thought behind that was that, I've always thought it was a map. I mean, I think the symbol has multiple meanings, but
Yeah.
if it is a map, and it's on several different trees, right? So I feel like they're looking at one specific point, but if you're looking at it from a different spot, it's going to look slightly different?
Mhm.
So, but with those drawings, what was really interesting, like that one with the triangle and the circle, the sun looks like it's more set behind the mountain. I mean, that's what I presume it is. Like it's further down. So, I just have like all these ideas that it's indicating like a certain date, when the sun is at that specific spot. I think even Nat says a line like that in episode 1, episode
While they were
201.
looking for Javi.
Mhm. She's like,
Yeah.
when the sun hits that peak, meet me here or what have you. So I really think that that's, yeah, pretty specific. And maybe that's just his viewpoint from his little, hermit cave that he was in. That was his viewpoint. And that's what you know, what his angle was. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's one more, but I think that's just oh, wait, no, there is a different one behind there. Is that a rabbit? I think that's
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
the one with the rabbit. So that one's also really interesting because of all the Jackie and Shauna rabbit
And
symbolism.
what's kinda cool about this is that the way one of the rabbit's ears is overlapping the
Totally.
triangle
Mhm.
that kinda looks like one of the lines that intersects it,
Mhm.
and then there's another triangle and circle behind that one,
Yeah.
and that almost could like, the way it's lined up, the triangle could be intersecting the other triangle
Mhm.
where it's lined up. So that's kinda yeah. Yeah, definitely very interesting stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but, yeah, I'm a little sad that I'm sad that we lost him so soon because I feel like I s I mean, I still wanna know I wanted him to tell them stuff, you know?
Yeah. He
Like,
had
who's his
some
friend?
very good question.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm very interested in knowing who his friend was. And yeah, I mean, he died with all those secrets. He didn't tell anyone. So like now we get to kind of, interpret these mysteries from his drawings and try and figure it out. And so it's a new hopefully that'll be kind of a focal point of season 3. Maybe that's what we can anticipate. Um,
I hope so.
yeah.
Um, so now when we go from the present day timeline where where Van throws the keys and all that, and then it goes into the next scene where Ty's staring out the window. I think this is where we get that transition, the close up on Van.
Mhm.
And it was
Yeah.
like it was so jarring,
Mhm.
the resemblance.
Gives you chills. That was so cool. I loved that.
Yeah, yeah, it
Mhm.
was really yeah, it was amazing. Um, but, yeah, I don't know if this is the first time that Ty is seeing her altar, Um,
That's a good point. That's a
because
really good point.
yeah, I mean, I had assumed that the first time she had seen it was in the present day,
Mhm.
um, but because I was thinking like, okay, she's seeing her altar now instead of the no-eyed man,
Mhm.
but, um, but now she's seeing her own altar in the reflection, and then she's, like, seeing her in front of her,
Mhm.
um, still with that creepy look on her face.
Yeah.
So creepy.
Yeah, that was a
Um
crazy scene. And what's interesting too is um like there is that transition from older van to younger van. So it's almost like we have two vans and then we switch and we have two ties. And then the one tie, superimposed onto Van's, face in Ty's mind. So it's like this kind of weird mirroring of those characters.
Yeah, yeah, that is cool. I like that. I hadn't thought about that. I am so, like, just unnerved about how Thaisa never loses her cool. Like,
In the Yeah, that's a good
she
point.
just I mean, she's looking at herself, and she's just I mean, yeah, it shakes her up a little bit, but she's not like, I would be screaming and crying and hiding in the corner.
Well, and it's interesting that she doesn't confide in Van because, they've been pretty honest with each other recently, and with all of the stuff with her altar, and then she feels like she hasn't seen her, she's sort of been appeased or what have you since she started doing the prayer circles with Lottie. And so for her to all maybe that's why she didn't tell Van, was because she was just freaked out with everything else that's going on. And like with Lottie, maybe she believed like that was an indication of Lottie's like state. If
Mhm.
Lottie perishes, then how can Ty maintain control over her alter ego? Because that's what's helping her sort of appease it in essence. um
That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Um, Almost like the wilderness is using Lottie
Hmm.
as its like a medium,
Hmm.
and she's on the brink of death right now, and that's why everyone is now starting to lose it and is starting to see things,
Hmm.
and obviously, like, it's the starvation. This is happening because of the starvation, but it's like they could be getting to this point because of the state Lottie's in.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
yeah. So it's
I think I
which
saw somebody comment on Twitter something like that. And that's why Nat was chosen, because she's been the one that's not like, she's not worshiping the wilderness, but Lottie is sort of protective over her in a
Mhm.
way. And so, um, like Lottie, she's drank Lottie's blood in the tea that she would send him off with, and that kind of thing. So that like gave her a protection over her. But if Lottie dies, then that protection goes away. And so this is kind of an example of that, because she gets the queen card when Lottie's in like her weakened state. So she is
Yeah.
sort of the protective, that she took on that protective bear, the mother bear energy when she killed the bear. Um, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I I have a feeling, so, obviously they revealed that Van has cancer. Um,
Mhm.
I which is upsetting, but I haven't been really worried about it because I don't think she's gonna die. Um, I think, there may be a blood sacrifice involved, but
Mhm.
I don't think that Van or Natalie can die.
Interesting. Well, Van has cheated death so many times, so it
She
would be
has.
really, it would suck for her to, I would not be happy if they killed her off. I think she's like a very beloved character, and I think a lot of people would be really upset if they killed her off. And oh, I mean, I guess if they killed Lauren Ambrose off, people aren't as like attached to her as they are with Liv Houston. And obviously Liv Houston's Van could live on in the show, even if
Mhm.
Lauren Ambrose died. But I feel like this is an opportunity for the show to prove the power of the wilderness. So I feel like there could be a healing essence to it as well.
Yeah.
If they're, if they make the right offering, because that's.
What's What's interesting to me is I feel like I've always felt like that the wilderness is obviously protecting Van for some reason.
Mhm.
Um, but it always seemed to me like the wilderness also is protecting Natalie, but through other people.
Mhm.
Um, like there have been multiple instances. I mean, she was about to pull the trigger on herself, and they jumped in and kidnapped her.
Mhm.
Um, she had the overdose and the paramedics got to her. Like there have been multiple instances where where it's shown that people are very protective of her.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really curious. I don't quite understand it. I don't have like a definitive theory around it, but it just seems like there are protective forces. Like the wilderness is using the others to protect Natalie for some reason.
Oh,
And
even
yeah.
Travis, his protective instincts came out in this episode. Like, because even he has that weird moment. Like, they've had their differences. Like, they've been pretty much separated for the majority of this season. But then as she's like having that moment with Javi, he's like, he looks over, but he's also, that's sort of like that hazy shot, um,
Mhm.
where he's sort of maybe being affected by whatever kind of hallucinogenic energy or mercury poisoning or whatever the hell's going on in there. But
Yeah.
it could also be, yeah, like the wilderness energy that's sort of guiding him, like, oh, look at her, she actually is a really good person, and has a really kind heart, and I should not be such a dick all the time to her. Like, uh maybe I should, protect her. And he took the chance when he had it. That was a crazy moment, and I loved it because that was again like a throwback to Doom Coming, where
Yeah.
the run thing.
Right?
Hmm.
It's just so curious because I mean, we understand their motivations, but it's like Misty busting in when she was about to snort coke
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
Ty
good
continuously
point.
paying for her multiple rehab stays.
Hmm.
Like it's very curious the way everyone seems to protect her.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's I hope I hope I'm not reading too much into it because there's just too much of that going on and I really want to find out why that's happening.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, we get to Van brings Mari Jackie's belt to make belt soup with.
Hmm.
Delicious.
Totally tasty. I was like, I hope that's real leather. Hopefully it's not just like,
Yeah.
some crappy little mall belt. Who knows?
Oh my god. Like, I really liked it. I really liked that they did this though, because it just, it shows the level of desperation.
Yeah. I also wonder, like, are they boiling any of the bones? Like, they had the bear carcass and all of that. I mean, I'd like to see more of what, yeah, the food stuff, like what they're bringing together. I love that they included it in this episode, and I'd like to see more of that because I think they had like some pine needles in there, and you can get some vitamin C from those. I mean, it's not going to be anything amazing, but I would love to see some of those like kind of starvation, resources that they're resorting to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm still wondering about Shauna tossing that blanket in the fire. If that could have had any negative effects. Um,
Oh, the baby blanket.
yeah.
Okay.
Because when her nose bled onto it, that's when all the birds flew into the cabin.
Hmm.
And and then she burned it. So, I was like when she threw it in the fire, I was like, "That I don't know that that was a good thing to do." Like, I
Well, I guess it just kind of depends, yeah, on like what sort of, I mean, it wants blood, so like
Mhm.
it was fed. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I also noticed that when we first saw the symbol carved into the attic floor, I took a screenshot. I took a screenshot of it, and it looked like there were stains over it. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering if those were blood stains,
Oh,
um,
interesting.
from Cabin Daddy. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if he had like K-worded himself kind of thing,
Possibly.
or
Or
just
if
made
he
sacrifices.
yeah, or just, like, was cutting his hand over it or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, making offerings. Interesting.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, that's a possibility. But oh my god, but like Jen was such a bitch. Shauna just grabs a blanket
Yeah.
and Jen's like, "Yeah, sure, go right ahead." And she's like, "Lottie's cold and you're not using it." And Melissa, who is reading a sassy magazine, she's
Just
like, "Oh, now
sassy.
you care about Lottie?"
Yeah. I loved that because of course Shauna's instinct, just like when Nat fell into the water, her instinct is, to keep that person warm, keep the weak one warm. And I think that's like her trauma after Jackie,
Mhm.
where Jackie froze to death. And so now it's always like when Nat had fallen in the frozen lake, or kind of dunked her head, she brought her back. She's like, we got to get her warm. When Lottie came back in, we got to get her warm. And now Lottie is like injured, we got to keep her warm. That's like her, you know that's the best she can do. She's not the most nurturing person, but she learned a lesson.
Yeah.
And that's, they
Yeah,
got
for
to
sure.
stay warm to stay alive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I like the dynamic between, Natalie and Ben here. Like, they
Mhm.
both agree that maybe it's better if Lottie dies, but Ben's speaking from, like, an altruistic point of view, like, "Yeah, if she's in pain," and Natalie's just like, "Yeah, I just think she's a bad influence."
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, she just wants to be rid of her.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like, "I think you're jealous of her." I don't know. That was like kind of a random thing to say, but I mean, I guess probably based on everything else that's going on between those two, but um that's funny considering what we were just saying about Lottie sort of having a protective, like, protection over Nat, and Nat's just like, "Nah, just let her die."
yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
was glad that we got, um I was glad that we got another Natalie and Ben scene though, because I really thought that they were gonna build up that relationship in season 2.
Mhm.
Like, I had this theory that, Natalie and Ben were gonna get super close, and even though it's, like, strictly platonic and Ben is gay and, he's a
Yeah.
coach, Misty was gonna get jealous and kill Ben to piss off Natalie. Like, I had this whole theory about it. Um, and I was kinda bummed that we didn't see them spending more time together.
Mhm.
Um, but, so I was kinda glad that they got this scene. Um
Yeah, it was nice. I think, I don't know for sure, but I know in the trailer for episode 9, there's that shot of Nat, and she's saying something like, you don't belong back, you don't belong with the rest of us. And I wonder if she's saying that to Ben, like if she might find him out there at the cave or what have you, and she's like, yeah, you're not partaking in the cannibalism, you're not partaking in like the dark, like, descents that we've made. um
Mhm.
and if you have somewhere else that you can go to, like, get away from this madness, then do it. Get away from us. That's kind of, I don't know for sure if that's who she's talking to, but that was like what I was guessing. That was what I got.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear ya.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I that's what I kinda thought too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, she tells Ben that she caught Javi bowing to a tree, and he asks her which one, and she says by the creek, and so he, like, I was really happy with this. This being like, okay, with the Antler Queens being the Coach Ben Hate podcast. I've said this before and I mean it. It's not a genuine hate. I just have fun hating on Coach Ben.
Yeah.
I think Steven Kruger is doing such a great job playing him.
Hmm.
And I think the character is a good and likable person.
Hmm.
Um, he just personally triggers me just for very specific personal reasons. Um, and so reasons that he wouldn't trigger anybody else. So I just
We all
enjoy
have our things, and I don't
yes.
judge.
I enjoy hating on him. But I was glad that they gave him something interesting to do in this episode.
Yes. He was like citizen detectiving, you know? He
Mhm.
figured it out. He figured out, which tree. Okay. And then he went and checked the map they've been making. And, and let's not miss the fact that he brought his book with him, the Magus. So
Yeah.
I have I have thoughts about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in that book.
Mhm.
Um,
And I
but,
think that he's
yeah,
gonna
I
start.
have this, headcanon that the showrunners listened to the Antler Queens and heard all the hate that Ben was getting, and they're like, "Alright, we gotta give him something interesting to do."
Absolutely. I agree.
You're welcome, everybody.
What would we do without you, Kelly?
My hatred for
What
Coach
would
Ben
Coach Ben
saves
be
the
doing
day.
without you?
I will hate on him even harder now.
Mhm. You're making his storyline that much richer.
Yes, exactly. Um, but yeah, so he starts going through, Javi's luggage, and then he finds those drawings,
Mhm,
including the one with the tree that he saw earlier.
mhm.
Um,
Mm.
Aquila is in the corner by herself, mourning her little buddy Nugget, and almost eats him,
I was like,
but
"Don't do it,
fortunately
Aquila. Don't
I know.
eat that little old dead mouse. That's not a good idea." No matter
Yeah,
how hungry you
fortunately
are, like, that thing cannot there's gotta be, like, some diseases or something going on. Can't be healthy.
right?
I mean, I
Yeah,
guess you do what you
fortunately she
gotta do
stops
to
herself.
survive, but maybe throw him in the pot. Let him rehydrate a little.
Yeah. 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 That's totally healthy.
Poor Nugget.
I mean, they're eating belt soup right now, so,
Yeah, true. I don't know though, like, given the choice, belt soup or old mouse corpse, I might go with the belt soup.
Yeah, I might too, actually. Yeah. I might just eat that whole belt. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd give it a shot at least.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Um, now this was super weird. So, Mari hears the dripping again, but
Mhm,
this time Thaisa hears it,
mhm.
and she says, "I think it's coming from over there." Mari looks at the wall and starts screaming, "They're dead. They're dead," and we see blood dripping down the walls. Um, and we just see this from the point of view of everybody in the cabin. We have no idea, like, we don't see people's bodies or anything. All
Mhm.
we see is the blood. Like, what were your thoughts on this scene? Because I thought it was so interesting that Ty heard it and
This is a weird one.
yeah.
Okay, I thought it was weird that Ty could hear it also because I kind of wonder if maybe it was her other, the other one because she was kind of
Mhm.
sleeping. Ty did that a few times in this episode where she was like kind of sleeping and then wakes up. And so it's like which Ty are we dealing with right now? Um I don't know what to make of the cabin walls. Like, I mean, Van, it's the hunger, Mari. It's just the hunger. And so there is that. But like the fact that she's been hearing that dripping so much, um, maybe she also is like a medium like Lottie. Um,
Yeah.
but doesn't really, she doesn't really know how to kind of hone in on that or, um, yeah, sort of amplify that ability. Uh, but that's a pretty and also, like, do you want to? I mean, there's definitely
Mhm.
people who, um, that are mediums that have visions like that or maybe communicate with the dead and that kind of thing. And so maybe Mari is just like, if she has that sort of connection, then she, at her young age, she's probably not ready to like tap into that. She might be completely freaked out or not know how to kind of control that aspect of herself. So that might be kind of the idea they're exploring. Because it could just be similar to Lottie's abilities, but in a different, like, down a different path kind of thing.
Yeah.
I
Who
don't know.
like, do you have any remote clue as to like, do you have any idea on what she could have meant by they're dead?
My husband was thinking like it was like the Donner Party maybe because like
Mm,
and I don't know if that like okay, okay, so the Donner Party like one of the last guys that was there had a bunch, basically a bunch of just it was a gory scene. He was like the last one there and there was a bunch of bodies and parts and bloody buckets and things like that. He
gotcha.
seemed like he may have been doing it for fun at that point. But so like maybe that's like a cabin daddy thing. Maybe there's haunting there and she's like, seeing something that happened there previously. I don't know. It's weird. And then also in that shot, when she's screaming and kind of freaking out, Coach walks in. Did you see him? He walks in, looks, and he's like, just rolls his eyes and walks back out, which I loved. But it was also like so cryptic where he sort of walked in and stopped because, like, when he comes in, it's like when the blood's coming down out of the walls, and then he stops, and then it's just normal, and he walks back out, and he's like, whatever. And so it's like, is that some sort of foreshadowing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it could be.
Maybe.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Um,
It was very cryptic. It was very like I think it was meant to keep us thinking and wondering.
yeah, for sure. Um, I like that they say it's the hunger because weren't the showrunners inspired by there's like a movie or a book or maybe both called The Hunger. And I feel like I read something about the showrunners being kind of inspired by it. It's not I don't think it's like a similar story, but I think there's like elements of it that are similar. I don't think
Hmm.
it's like a survival thing, but
Is it
I'm
like a
just trying to
cannibalism kind of thing?
I don't know. I almost want to say maybe it was like a vampire story or something, but I feel like
Well, that's
I
a
feel
little
like
bit
I read that the showrunners were heavily inspired by it.
okay. Hmm.
Um, so I that kind of jumped out at me
Hmm.
that they said it's
We'll
the
add it to the
hunger.
movie club, Van's movie club.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
We have book club and movie club.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so then we see Kevin and douchebag show up in the present day.
I really
Um,
hate him so freaking much. Not Kevin. I mean, Kevin's I cops, but
yeah.
but no, like Jay, Matt, what's his name? I don't know. I don't care. I hate him and I hope he dies. But
Sarah Dusha. Officer Sarah Dusha.
yeah, exactly. Like I just
Yeah.
really like and I honestly and I was actually talking to my husband about this because we were just rewatching it before we started this and I was like, I think he's really like when he shows up at the house and he's like, "Let's do this, boys." And like they come waltzing in. I really feel like he's really trying to trigger all of them.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like Shauna's not there, so he's going to try and trigger Callie and Jeff to see if he can get somebody to like, be volatile. Like he's assuming that they're just like this bunch of which I mean, granted they are a bunch of psychos, but but like I think he wants to try and bring that out of Callie or see if he can get her to like say something, real nasty or they're pushing Jeff's buttons about like Shauna having the affair and all this kind of stuff and just seeing if they can get somebody to just show their true colors out of this family kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good bet. I mean, he definitely seems like he has fun triggering them or well, Callie in particular.
Mhm.
But I like, I mean, I'm automatically not gonna like cop characters, but I still had a soft spot for Kevin.
Mhm.
Um, that kind of disappeared in this episode. I mean, he was like, yeah, I understand that during investigations they can start getting a little bit manipulative, but I don't know. I think he was just a little inappropriately manipulative in this
Yeah.
episode.
Well, and
Um,
that's the thing, like, watch out for cops because, like, of course, Shauna and Jeff have both mentioned, should I get a lawyer? But, like, you don't
mhm,
ask a cop if you should get a lawyer. They're always going to tell you no because a lawyer just makes their job more difficult. They just want to,
right.
press you and try and get the information. If you have a lawyer standing in the way, then that hinders them, walking all over you. I mean, excuse me, doing their job. But but yeah, so and I feel like, Kevin um is trying to, they're playing good cop, bad cop, like, Jay or Matt. I don't know what his I don't care. Sarah Dusha. He's obviously the bad cop, really trying to like push their buttons, and then Kevin's trying to like act like he's the friend. Oh, we went to school together, yada yada. But yeah, now it's really becoming more clear, especially when he tells Jeff, oh, you Sadekis and your lawyers and all of this. It's like, you need a lawyer. Get a lawyer immediately. Like, I was sitting there when
Yeah.
he was talking to Jeff, I was like, shh, stop it. Just shut up. Just stop talking. Because I was like, every word that's coming out of your mouth, just stop it. Stop it, Jeff. Just don't say anything else.
Yeah. Well, it's like what
So
he said. He's like, "You Sadekis always talking about lawyers makes me feel like you have something to hide." Okay, this is a very obvious situation where anyone would want to get a lawyer. Like, if the
mhm.
cops showed up at my house with a search warrant, I'd be like, okay, I'm not saying a single fucking word until I get an attorney.
Yeah. I mean, they should have, yeah, I would have never gone in for questioning or anything without a lawyer. Like, they just
Yeah.
should have, whether like you're guilty or not, like in that sort of circumstance, they were looking to pin it on whoever. And so, yeah, just
Mhm.
they've done it. It's just like Misty said, you should have just listened to the freaking cookie, you know?
Yeah.
Always get a
Yeah.
lawyer. Talk to my lawyer.
I loved Callie, recording him on her phone, though,
Mhm.
and, she's like, "You're getting pretty close to my panty drawer there. Are you gonna take a sniff?"
I loved it too because I kind of felt like he was like enjoying it, like, in a sense, because he was like, oh, he was kind of putting on a performance a little bit for her recording, right? He's like, nice job saying that we slept together, like my like, you could just tell he wanted to get that on camera as much as like she wanted to get the other stuff on camera. But oh my God, I was freaking out through that whole scene. I was like, is he gonna find the ID? Because Callie had
Oh,
Adam's
yeah.
burnt up ID. And I was just like, oh my God, like, where is it? Where is it? Does she have that hidden somewhere? Where the freak is it? I was
Right?
losing my mind. So
Oh my god. Well, you know what, I think Shauna grabbed it, didn't she? Like, when she found it in her drawer?
may I hope so. I
Yeah.
really, really, really hope so. I really hope that thing is gone into oblivion. Maybe it's in Shauna's purse with all of the other things that she keeps hidden, because I'm convinced she has like a journal and probably a butcher knife in her purse.
Yes. Exactly. Maybe a couple of heads, you know?
Yeah. Who knows? But she's got, yeah, some scandalous stuff in
Um,
there.
yeah. But, like, okay, I did not like the conversation that they had at the table. Um, like, they show Jeff the pictures of Adam's cut up body, and they're digging their heels in really, really majorly like, this was this was done by somebody that the cuts were really precise. This was done by somebody who, knew what they were doing, and someone who had the foresight to dispose of the head and the hands. Even his tattoos were removed with a cheese grater. It's like, what are you implying? It's like they're automatically jumping to the assumption that these chicks, like, did horrible sadistic things in the wilderness, which you know, yeah, sure, they probably did, but like, I mean, as far as like what people can assume, I think for the most part the assumption is they probably ate each other to stay alive.
Mhm.
Um but they're like really digging in with the whole, I feel like they know something. You know what I mean?
Well, especially with how enthusiastic Sarah Dusha is, uh,
Mhm.
it's like, why? You know? Why
Yeah.
are you so personally invested in this? Like, he just seems to be getting like a sadistic joy out of every like aspect of this case, you know? Um, yeah, it's interesting. And I think Shauna even says something like she said a line this episode that was like, I mean, she said it before, but it was similar to the, if there's, somebody looking into this, if they find out more about this, then we're effed. Um, but she said something similar in this episode too. That was like along the same lines. I can't remember exactly what the line was. But so there is that concern, like, did somebody look into what they've done? How would they know? How would they figure it out? Ty has been so concerned with them, somebody spilling the beans, somebody talking, and that's why she, supposedly hired Jessica Roberts and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and of course there's still the question of, are there more survivors? Did other people make it out and maybe they are, loose lips or what have you, or maybe somebody made an offer to them they couldn't they couldn't refuse. What if it's Mari? What if it's, Melissa? It could be any of the other ones that we have yet to find out if they survived. So
Yeah, it could be Ben.
it could be Ben playing the Magus, that's the
Yeah.
thing too. So that's what that whole story is about like a man who went through a traumatic experience. He's an older man. He went through a traumatic experience. And he became wealthy and, owns this huge, I think he owns like an island or something. And so he essentially uses that, his position, his wealth, and his island to bring people there. And then he reenacts his trauma on them. It's sort of like Great Expectations. With Miss Havisham, where they're reenacting their trauma and like bringing in these victims to play it out upon, to see how they might react in a different circumstance. And so the fact that Ben's been reading this book and that it's become part of his storyline in season 2 is really interesting, and that's definitely something to consider about him.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, I mean, he didn't he wasn't involved in the card drawing.
Mm-mm.
So I was really curious about that. Like, why did they not insist that he be part of that? Are they just going to leave him alone and just like, are they not going to target him at all? I mean, that's what I'm feeling like. I feel like they could be going in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
and that he'll survive. And what's going to happen is he'll either be left behind, um, or he will get out with everybody else.
We were talking
Um,
about this in your live stream last week about like the potential of him getting left behind. And I jokingly said in the comments, like, Ben is the new cabin daddy. Like, they leave him behind and he's the new. And I was totally just like, ha ha ha, joking. But then this episode happened. And I was like, oh crap, he actually might be the new cabin daddy. Crazy.
I posted something on Twitter the other day because like I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about in my coverage with Aaron for Burial. When I met, he was so shocked when I said that I hated Coach Ben, and he's like, I'm like, I mean, I just kind of want to see everything go to chaos once the adult is removed, once the rational
Mm-hmm.
adult is removed, and then he's like, oh, I have this whole idea about them just like removing his limbs one by one and eating them. So I posted on Twitter. I'm like, I love it. Cracks me up when someone is shocked that I it always happens that I mention I hate Coach Ben and someone expresses shock over that, and then they just suggest something more horrifying than my hatred for Coach Ben.
Seriously. I'd be like, "Please just kill me all at once. Let's not do this." Like, it's cold. You can, like, freeze my parts, but honestly, it just I don't wanna do that. There's
Right?
no there's no painkillers out there. There's no,
Yeah.
antibiotics. It would not be a fun
Yeah.
situation.
He
Oh.
definitely seems committed to surviving now, though. I
I
mean,
he got a new win, and that was really interesting because he was very determined to end it last episode. And
mhm,
so it was like Misty did save him in a sense. And her, um I had empathy for her in that scene because when she really does break down and cry, she's like, I can't have another death on my hands. She really has been through quite a lot in the last few episodes in that short span of time. Um, and the loss of Ben, like, or just not being able to prevent him from taking his life would make you feel just as powerless as, well, I guess, like, I don't know, the whole thing with Crystal, I think that made her feel very powerless, like, because it was a preventable situation, but it happened, So I just
yeah,
feel like if with Ben, it's a preventable situation, she can't let it happen, And if it did, it would be very haunting for her. So I
yeah,
actually appreciated that from Ben. Like, please don't do this for many reasons, but particularly like don't put that on Misty. She really doesn't deserve that. And nor would anyone else, not just Misty, but
yeah,
anyone that was, had happened to find him. So,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Um, Also, I think he also may have been, like he may have also been worried about, um, what the other girls might have done to her if they thought that she pushed him,
Yeah,
you know?
because they already,
Um,
like, have strong opinions about her, and we even saw that earlier in that episode. So, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
'cause, like, even though she drugged him and, he still doesn't wanna hurt her, He's not, like
No.
he still has protective instincts over all of the girls
I
and
think his
boys.
whole thing now is he has to figure out how to mentally master these girls. He is
Mhm.
the adult, and though he is physically limited in what he can do, he has to step up his mental game. And I think that's also part of like what he's taking from the Megas, is realizing, okay, I have to mentally dominate these girls because they can physically dominate me, and if I wither away mentally, then they will, and I will just become their meal no matter what. So, and I feel like him trying to take his life in the last episode was also him trying to like kind of reclaim some power over his own life
Oh,
and
yeah.
death, I mean, because he's been so powerless. So yeah, I think now with that, yeah, that second wind for life, it's like, okay, now I have to figure out how to mentally, dominate this situation. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and now he's got a bargaining chip. He's got power now.
Hmm.
Like, he knows of this. I mean, with Javi dying, Javi never got Natalie to that little
Hmm.
cavern. Um, he died before he could show her where it was. Ben is the only one that knows where it is,
Hmm.
that knows about it. So he kinda has a little power now
Hmm.
that he can use to his advantage to protect himself.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's certainly interesting. But, yeah, getting back to the cops, like, it's just it's so weird that they're just so hell-bent on this idea of them just being sadistic killers in the wilderness, and I don't know, I thought that was really weird. But they said, like, they were able to identify him because they did a bone marrow test, which I didn't even know about. I didn't know that that was a thing, in forensics.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was because he had that medical history, if I mean, maybe they don't normally, but because he had the medical history, it was like easier to
Yeah.
access.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they go through people's medical records when they die, and
I feel like bone marrow testing, like, takes a really long time. Like, it takes a lot longer than, like, DNA testing. Like, it takes, like,
yeah.
weeks longer or something like that. So, it probably was something like they already had the information and maybe they just, like, cross examined somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. You know, I'm wondering if the bone marrow recipient might have been his mother.
yeah.
'Cause, I mean, like, uh, Walter mentioned that she had died.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, and
we
then
don't know
going back
from
to the
what.
paintings. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
that's a
good
good
point.
possibility.
I had always
Yeah.
thought, go like my first thought was always that Walter and Adam were brothers. Like that was like that Walter was the colorectal surgeon that Adam had talked about. Um
Yeah.
and that was kind of like my first like okay, that was what I thought Walter's purpose was at first. Now I don't know if I think that so much. I mean, there's got to be some connection with them for the reason why he was so invested in that. There's got to be some connection. I still think, unless it was all to
Yeah.
just seek out Misty, but that would just seem so incredibly random. Like he would have to have known that they were in. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think there's something significant there. that
Yeah,
that
yeah, no,
Walter
I
was
do too.
yeah. The anal
I
thing,
do
I
too.
mean, and then also actually Mandy, my co-host, she pointed out that when Misty gets that phone call in season 1 and the girls are like, she does the Play-Doh quote, the girls call her because they're accusing her of doing anal. And so I thought that was another
Oh,
great
yeah.
connection with Walter, like if Walter is the colorectal surgeon and the anal book or whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. And I've actually read that book.
Oh.
Um, I've read the Anus book. No, it's I mean, it's just a medical textbook.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I used to have to read these things for work. So,
Just a little weekend
but
reading.
yeah, I used to be a medical editor, and I remember, yeah, it was a really, like, I actually really enjoyed the work, but, there would be some really weird days sometimes, like the day where I spent almost an entire afternoon, writing up test questions, writing up exam questions entirely involving recreational rectal injuries.
Oh my god. You really use your imagination with that one. Or maybe actual medical records. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Oh my god.
it was so weird trying to explain my job to people, 'cause I'd be like, "Yeah, I went to lunch today and came back and saw a picture that somebody had left on my desk of some really fucked up genitals."
You're like, "Oh, just eating my lunch as I'm looking at these I used to be a vet tech all through my
Okay.
20s, so, like, I mean, we'd be, like, eating our lunch and 10 feet away down in the lab, they'd be, like, doing, fecal samples and stuff, and we'd be like, "Well, vet life." You know?
Okay, this is totally off topic, and I'm so sorry to get on a tangent, but the most horrifying moment that ever happened, um, it when I was doing that work, at that particular job, the most horrifying thing that ever happened to me was we would have, we had these my work week, sometimes most like, about half the year it was Monday to Friday, and then another half of the year it was Tuesday through Saturday,
Mhm.
because on Saturdays, or well, what would happen is all these doctors from of different specialties would fly in on Friday and write the exam questions, together. And we would it was a conference. It was a 2-day conference, Friday and Saturday. About not every weekend of the year, but about half of the weekends. And I would facilitate the meetings and make sure that they tried to stay as they were they would write the questions. We would put them on the screen. We discuss the doctors would discuss whether or not they were good exam questions. They pick them apart and then, my job was kind of to be well, this is why we can't do this. This is kind of political, or this is we have too many oddball questions. We have too many zebra questions. So we can't we need to kind of watch it with that. Just, pointing things out from an editorial perspective on why something might not work. And we would, towards the end of the meeting on the second day, we would often review questions that we've already had in the item bank that people had pointed out that there might be issues with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would bring them up and, ask everyone would look at the questions on the projector and discuss if they were in fact problematic, whatever issues there were. And there was one question. I was working with the OBGYN group, and there was a test question, and everyone's looking at the question and they're like, no, it's pretty straightforward. And it was something involving some kind of vaginal infection. And everyone's like, no, the question's pretty straightforward. And then we went to look at the visual. And this was why it was flagged. The photo was, now this part wasn't unusual. The photo was of a close-up of the woman's vagina with the doctor's fingers holding it open.
Oh gosh.
Which that wasn't unusual. And when we brought it up, nobody even reacted at first. And I didn't even think there was anything unusual about it until somebody suddenly pointed out, oh my God, why is he not wearing gloves?
Oh Lord.
And everyone's like, are we looking at porn?
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank goodness someone. This is like Akila Misty, Shauna's birth scene. Why are they not wearing gloves?
Yeah, crazy. we used a picture of Shauna Shipman's birth.
Yeah. Don't put
it's so funny
in your pocket before you start.
Yes. But yeah, it was so funny. Everyone's like, yeah, I don't see. Oh God, it totally changes the context once you realize the doctor's not wearing gloves.
Oh my gosh. Well, good thing
somebody we need a whole explanation behind how this photo happened.
Seriously. Oh my God. Some medical professional was paying attention to that much, at least, I suppose.
So sorry for the tangent. I just had to share that story because it was so insane. But yeah, anyway, so Kevin tells Jeff, there's still time for you and Callie to get out of this. You don't have to go down with her. And then he leaves, or the cops leave. Now, I'm sorry. I know we're already at an hour and a half, but this next scene, I had to jot down some of the dialogue because the women are in the sharing shack and they're dealing with the fact that Shauna told Jeff everything. Mm-hmm. Well, how did you feel about the scene?
Well, I laughed a couple of times just because I was just like, Shauna, what are you going to do here? Because you have dug this hole. You're way down in the hole. And, it was really funny. My thought was, Oh, how the how the turntables. Oh, how the tables have turned.
That used to actually be my ringtone, by the way. How the turntables.
Yeah. With, but with Shauna, like in the last episode and the whole beating of Lottie and all of this, this come to Jesus moment essentially. But then in turn, one episode later, oh, it turns out actually Shauna, now she's the person keeping all the secrets, and she's the one that really deserves the ass whooping now, honestly. And
Yeah.
like, she dealt it, but now, is she willing to take it when she's really like, it's like Ty said, I think she said, you've been lying to us and you put us in danger, and you've been taking advantage of us. And it's very true. And like the whole thing with the money, and like with Natalie, and going back to like how um
You
like
owe
you
her
were
a
saying
Porsche,
that.
Shauna.
Yeah, well, but how you were saying like that Nat is very vulnerable, and also in that scene in season 1 with the whole blackmail scene, essentially Ty and Shauna, when they're sitting there talking, and Ty's like, well, who does Nat have? She doesn't have anyone. We have, our spouses, we have our families. Nat doesn't have anyone. And so I felt like that was, kind of present in this scene. And then also the idea that like, yeah, Nat doesn't have anyone, and Shauna still took from her, and she didn't tell, and she was dishonest, and and so that's pretty messed up. It is. And the fact that, okay, so then Shauna, she does break down, she opens up and she's like, okay, yeah, this is what happened. And Nat, bless her heart, she stands up and she's like, well, thank you for sharing, Shauna. And she's like very like forgiving. Like she's pissed when she first finds out, but then after like Shauna opens up and like actually expresses some of her stuff, like Nat really wants to talk it out. She really wants to talk about what happened, about their feelings, everything they've, kept bottled up. She was kept bringing that up. What do you guys remember? What happened out there? We need to talk about this. And everyone kind of keeps shooting her down about it. Um, so, and even Lottie does in this, in this scene. And that's what's really crazy is like Nat's been learning so much from Lottie over these last few episodes, and really trying to take her advice to heart, which is something different than has ever happened in any of her other treatments. She's never been open to that. When she finally becomes open and receptive and starts to learn and starts to teach from that, all of a sudden Lottie's like, nope, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to just, we got to, it wants blood. That's that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting.
I I saw some comments. I was kind of surprised by some of the responses that I saw online about this episode.
Mhm.
People felt like the ending, with them pulling the cards and everything, was a little rushed and contrived. I didn't agree with that. I thought this was contrived. I felt like this scene was very contrived. I was not
Yeah.
digging it at all. I mean, it just okay, so this is how the dialogue went. Um, so they sit down, and right now, all they know is that Shauna told Jeff everything. She told Jeff that she was having an affair, and she told him that about Adam, and she told him that like she killed him and everything. So, um, Ty says, "We all need things we can't have, Shauna." And I love this. Van gives her a very loaded glance here.
Mhm.
um, and then Shauna says, "Is that what you were telling yourself when this happened? How did you two find each other again anyway?" And Van says, "That was easy. Ty just hitched a ride on an 18-wheeler to my place. Totally normal." Uh, and one of them says, "I thought you said you had lost touch, that you didn't even know where she lived." And Ty says, "It's hard not to find that. It's not that hard to find that kind of thing out these days." Misty says, "Yeah, I've had Van's address for years. You could have just asked me instead of outsourcing. Would have been so much cheaper." Someone says, "Hold on, what do you mean outsourcing?" And Misty says, "You want to tell them, or okay, I guess I will." Ty is the one who hired Jessica Roberts to look into all of us. Ty says, "I hired her for Oppo research. That's it." Shauna says, "You paid somebody to dig into our past. Are you fucking kidding? Have you forgotten what she could have found out?" Um, Ty says, I needed to know you weren't going to talk if someone made the right offer. And fuck Shauna, it's not like you couldn't use the money. I mean, Natalie is a fucking drug addict. I just needed to know that I could trust you guys. And someone says, "Trust us." Oh, the irony. Seriously, what if she decides to go rogue? Misty says, "Oh, we don't have to worry about that. And because I took care of it like I always do." Like, they're really jumping around here.
Well, it's
And
like Shauna says something like, "Oh, well, I'm not the only person that has secrets to expose or whatever." And like we see that with Ty, like Ty's pissed and she's like, kind of throwing shade at Shauna. She's like, "You guys are broke," yada yada.
yeah,
And but Ty's also keeping really big secrets. The whole thing with Jessica Roberts, hiring her, and oh yeah, it was just for Oppo research or what have you. But like, I don't know. There was much more to that. And that brought to mind when Ty goes to Jessica's apartment to try and find Dan's stuff, she takes the folder. She takes Jessica's folder that she has about all the yellow jackets, where they are, all the stuff, and probably more than just what we know, about the core
mm-hmm.
group. Who knows what other girls are out there or where they might live, or the off-grid stuff that she said. But Ty took that whole folder, and when she got into her car and she starts driving and runs out of gas, gets out and hitchhikes with the guy, she left that folder in the car. So, and I
Yeah.
just think that's so like important, because whoever finds her car, or actually it's her, like her publicity, person, her whatever, um that person's car, whoever finds it, they're going to have access to all that info. They're going to find that and be like, "What is all of this?" So,
Well, I mean, you have to figure that somebody has found it, because I'm sure when Ty didn't come back, Bethany
mhm,
was probably like on the phone to the police or something, like, yeah, Thaisa Turner just took my car and I can't get a hold of her. She hasn't returned. I don't know what's going on. Um, then, they find the car and they find the folder in it. I wasn't that worried about it, because um, I felt like Jessica hadn't gotten anyone to talk, so it was probably just a bunch of addresses.
mhm.
But if somebody finds it, you know, now that there's a murder investigation, they could use that
Yeah.
contact information. So now suddenly Thaisa wanted Jessica Roberts, this shady cleaner person, to try to pry information out of everybody. But now they got a bigger problem in that the cops could be knocking on people's doors trying to pry information out of
Yeah.
people, which is a lot more. They're going to be a lot more likely to spill.
Mhm. That's a really good
So,
point.
and
Yeah.
that could explain why Matt and Kevin were so like, you know, jumping to those conclusions, because
That's a good
somebody
point.
might have spilled.
Interesting.
Um, but yeah, so the whole thing continues. Misty says, "What was I supposed to do? Let her go? I'd already held her captive in my basement for like a week." I love this. Fan says, "Sounds like your hands were really tied." Oh wait, maybe those were her hands. Um, and she says, "Look, the only reason I kidnapped her in the first place was because I thought she was the blackmailer. I was trying to protect us. Little did I know that meanwhile, Shauna was being seduced by this adorable grifter whose only real intent was to get his mitts on her old journals and extort us." And the FBI has been going around asking questions about Natalie. And she's like, and they're like, "The FBI, what?" And she's like, "Okay, the FBI was me. Technically, it was my boyfriend, Walter Tattersall. We were trying to find out who kidnapped Natalie. And we knew that Randy had been staying at the same motel, so Walter impersonated an FBI agent and interrogated Randy on his boat, Walter's boat, not Randy's boat. And said it wasn't a terribly fruitful interrogation, at least not at first. He was paralyzed with fear, which is strange for an innocent man. And then he mentioned Jeff. I mean, they're best friends, so probably. No, it was more like in a worried way. Like they had done something that he was nervous about. And I didn't give it much thought at the time, but there's another person who had access to those journals the whole time. And Thaisa says, "You found glitter in your bedroom closet. You assumed it was from Adam, but really it makes a lot more sense if it was from Jeff." And Natalie says, "Shauna, was Jeff the one who sent the postcards? Was your fucking husband the one blackmailing us?" This whole thing just seemed really contrived. Like they got to this from point A to point B way too quickly. Like, I mean,
Well, I
almost
think it
like it
was
was
like you pull at one. That was how janky. I think it was an example of how like just like the foundation of Shauna's whole thing is ready to crumble, and like the whole thing of like Misty trying to prep her for being interrogated and all those kind of things, and how she just didn't take any of it seriously was actually like to her detriment, and so I think it just kind of showed, it was like another example of how you could just pull one little string from this, one card from this house of cards, and the whole thing is just going to come crumbling down. So yeah,
yeah.
that's kind
Yeah,
of
I
yeah.
get that. I just feel like a lot of this information that's coming out, I feel like they just would have been a lot more stunned and asking way more questions about
Mhm.
each step that they wouldn't even get to that so fast. Like they'd be they'd be
Probably
asking Ty, like, what do you think Jessica found out? Or, like I don't know. It just seems like it got there really fast.
it's such
Um,
a it's just, it's not a good, the whole, and then Misty and Nat, when she's like, "Well, did you bury him 6 feet deep?" And she's like, "Well, I didn't
yes.
bring a measure, but it's he was deep in there."
Yeah.
But it's just like, and I assumed that it had been Misty that had disposed of the body the whole time. So now finding out that it was actually Nat that buried this, it was like, oh no. Like, that's the thing. Shauna left everyone else to deal with this problem, and she just kind of went home and was like, well, she chopped the body up, yeah, but like, I don't know. If I were her, I would feel that it was like my responsibility to be partaking in every step of like the disposal, and not just presume that it was done correctly by other people. I mean, this isn't the
Yeah.
mob. This is the moms.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, so we then see Walter. He's listening to the Sweeney Todd soundtrack, which I thought was interesting.
Oh my god,
It's
Walter.
I like I you know, I've done a lot of musical theater
Mhm.
in my past. I'm not a fan of musical theater in general.
Yeah.
Unless it's Jesus Christ Superstar, because that soundtrack is just fucking amazing. Um, but I mean, I've seen Sweeney Todd enough times to, immediately have recognized the song.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it's funny that this is the second Sweeney Todd reference we've gotten with Walter,
Mhm.
which just makes me think, okay, did he track Misty down because he's obsessed with, because he has a secret cannibal fantasy, or he is a secret cannibal, and
Well, yeah, and he's in the trailer for, okay, so like, well, he starts getting all those messages on his computer of people, saying, "Oh, there's updates on the Adam Martin case, yada yada. They found the body." And he immediately emails the police and he says, "Oh, I know some things about this case, And so of course, we're all like freaking out, assuming that he's going to rat out Misty, especially after her last phone call where she leaves a message and basically confirms that that yes, what you said is true, And so I'm thinking like, but then in the trailer for the next week's episode, I don't know if you've watched it, but the
Yeah.
trailer shows that Walter's well, he comes face to face with Jeff and he says something like, "We need to clean up the body." And
Yeah.
so it's like, whose body? And what's
Yes.
his, Walter's obviously on a whole different trajectory. So we might have underestimated what he's capable of. He might just be the perfect match for Misty. And that's what I hope for, because honestly, this is the ship of dreams.
Yeah, for sure. And they're both really obsessed with cute cat photos. Clearly.
They
I
are
mean,
really
his
like they are a match made in heaven. Like they are really perfect for each other. And they both, well, I mean, I don't know about Walter's past love romance history, but Misty deserves some love. She deserves some honest love and a good, relationship.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And he needs help completing that gigantic puzzle. My god, that is the biggest freaking puzzle I've ever seen in my life. Holy shit.
He
Um,
reminds me of uh why can't I think of his name right now? But the guy that's like that Leonardo DiCaprio plays in Aviator, where he's like, is it Aviator?
oh,
I think when he's like that crazy guy, Howard something,
Howard
where he just
Hughes?
drinks. Yeah, and he just drinks milk all the time, and he's like an eccentric, like I was like that was the vibe I was getting from that scene.
Yeah. I could
Yeah.
see that. If we
Mhm.
yeah, if we see him go into a movie theater, we could start worrying.
Yeah.
um but yeah, he opens up for it. The Yellow Jackets universe's version of Reddit. And I actually like I noted down the DMs he got. In the thick of it said she's a literal man eater. Um, Sammy the sleuth said, I knew it was her. Putting the sick in forensics, you're the man. 33 red herring says, does anyone know where the case is going now? And now this is what I found really interesting. I paused the screen to look at because he opened up the news. He opened up a news site, and I told you earlier that um if Van hadn't tossed the keys, I don't think Shauna would be getting very far
Mhm.
anyway, and she probably did her a favor. Um, so the headlines on the news page were really interesting. Governor issues a severe weather warning. Locals are urged to stay indoors. And multiple car pileup on Route 9. Officials are urging travelers to avoid Route 9, where a multiple car pileup has interrupted the flow of traffic.
Ooh.
So that that could cause havoc in the next episode if
Yeah.
anyone is trying to get anywhere.
Yeah, depending on we should look it up and see if there's a map. I mean, a real Route 9. But I wonder if it heads, if it heads north, because that's my thought is they're heading north. And depending on if this accident, what if it's south of them, maybe that'll hinder the investigation, the police from heading up there, give them some extra time. Who knows? That's a really good point. The first comment, the man eater comment, that's what um Officer Douche Magoosh, he he says that about Sean. He says that to Callie. He says, "Oh, well, they'll see that the apple doesn't fall from the fucked up man-eating tree." So I wonder if
Oh,
he's like
wow.
posing on the forums. Maybe he's
Oh,
following Walter
man.
on the forums because Walter was like showing interest Like, we kind of assumed there was the chance that maybe Walter was a police officer doing that, like posing on the forums to try and figure it out. But what if actually Officer Douche Magoosh is actually doing it? Um, he's doing it and he's following Walter to try and gain some more. That
And
might just be
that would
oh, go ahead.
make the username a lot more interesting too, because the
What is
username was in the thick of it that said that.
Ooh,
Literal man
yeah.
eater. Ooh,
Interesting.
we may have you may have picked up on something here.
She's a
Very
man
cool.
eater. And, I noticed, one of the ads, it might have been on the For It site. I can't remember if it was on the For It or the police website, but there was an ad on the side that said something like "Summer is calling" or something like that. And it was
Yeah.
like some pictures of like trees, and I was like, "Oh, that's the wilderness. The wilderness is calling. We hear the wilderness."
Oh man. I didn't even
So,
think about that. Wow. Um, but yeah, he emails them letting them know that he has some information that might be helpful in their investigation. So I'm wondering if, and then we see him grab a purple shirt and a bag
mhm.
and take off. So what I'm wondering here is if he set out to, is if he is connected to Adam, set out to find out more information from Misty, like try to, get close to her,
Mhm.
um, to do some more digging, but then ended up having feelings for her
Mhm.
and is now gonna try to help her. And maybe he's actually emailing the police to, like, throw them off the trail or something, you know?
Yeah. That seems I feel like that seems more likely at this point. I mean, just based on how the that appearance of him in the trailer from next week. And I don't know, it's they said or at least I've heard that Elijah Wood's character, Walter, he's only having like a one season arc. But man,
Mhm.
I would love to see them expand his character and like, unless something really tragic happens to him, then I'm very curious how they're going to wrap it up with him because like at this point, it doesn't seem like he could just walk away from the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
He's gonna get them all on his boat, and they're all gonna take off.
that's a great point. That's a really great point. Oh, man. She did
It's a
mention his
possibility.
boat. When
Yeah.
Walter's boat, not Randy's.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. That's a good idea. That'd be
Yeah, yeah,
awesome.
they could get away that way.
Yeah.
Um, that would be wow, that'd be interesting. Um,
Hmm.
but, yeah, so, now okay, so the next scene with the dream scene, when did you pick up that it was a dream? The Jeff and Shauna.
Oh, pretty much like as soon as she walked in the kitchen, she just kind of looked weird to me. She looked sort of evil. I was just like, that doesn't look like my dear sweet Shauna that I know and love. She just looks like a little bit demonic right here and not in the sexy
Yeah.
way that I enjoy.
Well, I was super nervous. I was like, because of the music. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Holy shit, is she gonna hurt Jeff? Like, is she actually gonna kill Jeff? What the fuck?" Just because of the music was freaking me out. And then when we saw her actually cut him, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is a dream."
Ooh,
Um,
that cut though was like really pretty not like I mean, obviously we're going to get into like some gory things in this show, but I want to say that's probably like one of the gnarliest things that we've seen in this whole show so far.
yeah,
That cut
yeah,
right there was just very like gory, very well done.
it was. And
Yeah.
I didn't pick up if I picked up on this detail earlier, I would have probably would have realized it was a dream immediately. But when I watched it back, I noticed that like the living room was just in complete shambles.
Oh, really?
Um, like the cushions were like all of the cushions were just thrown everywhere, and it was just like, I mean, it looked like a tornado went through it, and Jeff was like
Interesting.
straightening it up.
I wonder if that
Um,
was more indicative of like if that was actually a reflection of what the police had done to their house or if it was just more like indicative of like his mental state at that moment in time.
that's what I feel like. Well, or it could be both. Yeah, because the cops could have like they could have messed it up pretty bad, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I feel like he probably just was dreaming that because of like everything in his life is so fucked up right now.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
chaotic.
Well, and it
But
was like it was really sad because like those first moments he has with Shauna where she's like, "Oh, I just feel like you're the only person who really understands me and I just needed to be with you right now with everything that's going on." And it's like if this is in his dream, he really like loves Shauna so much and
oh yeah,
really like wants them to be like a normal happy family without all of this strife that's going on. And so it was just so sad that like that's his dream. Like he has to dream of like those, kind of tender moments that he wishes he had with his wife, but like he also knows that he's probably not going to have those because in reality his wife is more like the butcher hands lady,
yeah,
and it's scary, but then, like, he has that scene with Callie afterwards, and, I mean, I was just crying watching that because it was just so sweet
I
and
know.
emotional, but also, like, he realizes that I don't even know if he realized it before he actually said this to Callie because he probably has never talked about it at all, the baby. He's probably never ever because it doesn't
Yeah,
seem like he and Shauna talk about that at all.
right.
And so, like, I think he also realized right in that moment, he's like telling Callie, like, this is your mom's burden to bear and my burden too, I guess. It's almost like it just dawned on him that like what happened to Shauna with the baby was it's his burden also. He may have not
Mhm.
been there, but like what happened to her because of that is ultimately intertwined with him and he can't
Yeah,
escape that. And so that means he's partially responsible for how fucked up she is. And and again, I don't think he even realized that until like right in that moment when he's like saying it to her, but um yeah, it's sad. It's their whole family is kind of and even Shauna acknowledges later, she's like, "Well, I told my daughter about this, and now she's sort of like an accomplice." And so, yeah, the whole family is mixed up in this now.
yeah, and and it's interesting because I could see him, even though it wouldn't be justified, I could see him feeling responsible for her being kind of fucked up because a lot of the reason that she's fucked up is from the guilt over not over just like feeling responsible for Jackie's death, but she still has guilt over like, quote unquote stealing Jeff
Mhm.
from her. And maybe part of him feels responsible for getting involved with her
Yeah.
because that put a huge burden on her that she still feels guilty about.
Mhm.
But I thought I thought it was so sweet the way he talked about her. I mean, because Callie asks, she's like, Callie was wearing very cute pants, by the way. I noticed them right away. I was like, oh god, those are really cute. Um, but they he it could have gone a lot of ways. Callie was like, basically, am I fucked up like mom?
Mhm.
And and he could have just left it at like at, no, you've had different life experiences, like, you're a lot more together, or he could have taken it in a different sympathetic route where like, yeah, your mom's fucked up and we should encourage her to get help and to find a therapist and to help her, like, get her mind right. But he took it in, like, the uber sensitive, sympathetic direction, which was, "Your mom's been through a lot of trauma." And, like, he was just totally being an apologist for her, and it was so sweet. Like, he's such a good guy.
He's Shauna's biggest cheerleader. Like, bless his
Yeah.
heart, and she is so lucky to have him. And I think she realizes that, at this point, especially like after that phone call, and she's like, I need to go home. I need to be with my family, which was definitely not the best decision. Like Van taking and throwing the keys was the best thing for Shauna, because going back there would have been a terrible idea. But
Oh, can you
but
imagine?
oh my god, she is really bad at being a criminal. Do not go
Oh,
anywhere
man.
without Misty ever, Shauna.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, it was just yeah, Jeff is definitely her biggest advocate, and he loves her so deeply. And um, and I always think about Jeff, like he knows the what the girls went through out there, and he has to feel it on a very personal level also, just because of Shauna, but also because of Jackie, and there's just so
Mhm.
much. He has a lot of personal things intertwined in that, um that he also lost out there. And so um I forget what I was going to say, but anyways, yeah, Jeff. He's just precious,
Yeah.
he's just such a good person. He's so kind to Shauna, and I yeah, he's just a good husband. She's so lucky to have him, really.
Yeah. And he's just like, and he's so sweet with Callie, like, he's just I totally cried during the scene.
Yeah, it was so
I got choked
touching.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you're a daddy's girl, but I know I lost my dad a few years ago, and I was totally a daddy's girl, and so I was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
listen to your dad, Callie.
Yeah. No, I'm more the type who's watching it thinking like, "Oh god, Callie, you're so lucky."
Yeah, I think that too, because I'm like, I miss my dad.
Yeah,
Our
yeah, I hear
messages
ya.
are now. But yeah, and
Yeah, no,
he's
I
such a
totally hear
good
ya.
dad. He's so sweet, and I worry about Jeff, I really do. Like I worry about him. I worry about Callie, and like what's going to happen to them. Is this family going to stay together? I mean, it's like Lottie said, you're going to lose your family if you don't, change what's going on right now. And um and I always think about like Shauna's fortune, that or like her whatever it was, like Mad Lib or whatever they were doing, her and Jackie, or her comfort corpse.
Oh, the MASH game.
Yeah, and the meat shed, and she says something like, when Jackie reads her little thing, she says, "Oh, you're going to be a millionaire. You're going to live in an apartment by yourself, but married to Jeff." Like it was all very contradictory. You're going to be married to Jeff, but live in an apartment alone, and you're going to be a millionaire. It's like, I don't know. There was a lot of contradictory information in that, but for some reason, it seemed like it was very um, applicable, and or maybe in the future. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know.
pretty much.
Scary.
Um, but, I like how I basically just admitted, like, "Hey, I have daddy issues."
You and me both, girl.
That's funny. So, anyway, like, yeah, Callie seems pretty broken up about the fact that, she had a brother that didn't make it, that didn't
Mhm.
live. So that's really sad.
It
But,
is very sad for her, especially because she's an only
yeah.
child. And I know I've learned from your channel about Molly. And
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but she didn't make it into the final cut of the show. Although the Molly did, which I thought was
Yeah, yeah.
a wonderful nod.
Yes.
But um
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, it is sweet. Like and the fact that she is an only child and she's got this like pretty fucked up family, and she's like, wait,
Yeah.
I had a sister or a brother, you know, like when I don't know, like did you have siblings growing up, or do you have siblings, I guess?
My family dynamic is weird because I have a brother and a sister, but my brother's like 11 years older than me,
Oh,
and
okay.
my sister is 9 years older than me. So, I have siblings, but I kinda grew up more like an older like an only child.
Mhm.
Um, it was like they were almost kind of like, cousins or
Mhm.
my aunt and uncle, because I didn't live with them for most of my childhood.
Yeah.
Like, when they
Yeah.
both left for college, they didn't come home. Like,
Mhm.
they got apartments and they were out of the house for good.
Mhm.
And they both were local. They both went to school. Like, I'm in in the Chicago area like, on the Indiana side. Um, like, I'm about, 10 15 minutes from the Chicago border, maybe about 10 minutes. Um, but my brother went to Notre Dame, which is in South Bend, Indiana, which is about, I forget how far, maybe like an hour and a half from here. And this is where I live in the area I grew up in.
Mhm.
Um, and my sister went to Northwestern, which is in Evanston, on the other side of Chicago, but like they were both really close. So they came home a lot, but they were out of the house. I mean, by the
Mhm.
time I was like 8. So I don't have a lot of memories of living with them. I
Mhm.
didn't grow up with them. So it was kind of I always felt more like an only child. But I'm
Well,
sorry, you
then
were
well, no, what I was gonna say is you probably experienced then that desire to, like, have a sibling that was, like, close in age, you know, somebody that you like, I don't know, like, when I was younger, I mean, I have a brother who is a year and a half younger than me, and then I have um other another brother and sister who are also like, yeah, like 12 and 13 years younger than me. And so it's kind of like I always wanted a sister. I have, you know, my brother's close in age, but I was like, I want a sister, you know, I want a little sister. And of course it didn't happen until I was like 12 years old, but
yeah.
but still, like, you want that camaraderie, that closeness. There's just something about having like that relationship with your siblings where, you know, you have your own secret dynamic that like is separate from the rest of the family. And so like for Callie, who is kind of growing up as an only child, or has grown up as an only child with like a clearly like, you know, her mom, I don't know how her relationship with Callie was growing up, but you know, even Shauna admits she kept her at an arm's length because she was afraid. And so, you know, there's just a lot to wonder about like what Callie's childhood was like, you know, and was there, yeah, that desire to have a sibling, and you know, maybe she never was able to express that, or like how Shauna might react to that. If Callie was like, oh, you know, because little kids will say that kind of stuff. I want a little brother, I want a little sister, and like how Shauna might take that kind of, you know, commentary. It would be really interesting to see their dynamic, like a flashback of young Callie and how Shauna was.
Yeah. No, like I actually do remember being young, and when my sister wasn't around, um, like during when she was in school, like I remember thinking to myself, I wish I had a sister closer to my age. I wanted a sister so badly that I lived with, that was close to my age. And like I actually had this sound oh my god, this sounds so pathetic. I have a photo from my like ninth birthday or something, um, at Showbiz Pizza, um, where like I've got my party hat on, and they put the cake in front of me, and everyone's singing happy birthday to me, and I'm sitting there with just like this huge pout on my face and crying because my sister wasn't there because she couldn't
Oh,
come in.
that's sweet.
And
Oh.
I just like I would be so sad every time. when she would come home for the summer and then she'd go back to school, like, I would just I'd get so sad and I'd just be like, "I need a sister. I
Mhm.
need another sister." Like, I
That
just want
reunion,
to me
it's very
like, I just wanted to
powerful.
miraculously find out that I had a twin sister separated at birth or something.
Mhm. Yeah, like me and my best friend would play that because like I had a best friend and her she had a brother who was also like, a year apart from her, but we were like, well, we both have brown hair and we both have brown eyes, so we must be twins separated at birth, and like just play that game.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
The games little girls
Um,
play.
yeah. I did wanna point out that, when Walter was gathering his things to take off, he was listening to Phantom of the Opera, um,
Oh, yeah.
which obviously Misty was listening to in season 1.
Mhm.
Um, so I just caught that in my notes that I noticed I skipped over that, so that was kinda interesting.
Those 2
Um,
are soulmates.
I know, right? Um, but, yeah, so going back to the past, um, Misty's still tending to Lottie, and Lottie tells her that I was like, I did a reaction video, like, because 'cause I'm doing reaction videos and putting them on my Patreon,
Mhm.
um, and I I remember, like, when Lottie told Misty, "If I die, don't waste my body." I was like, I think I actually clapped. I was like, "Yes, somebody has common sense." Because like, if I were in that position, I'd be begging. I'd be like, "Okay, I know I can barely move, but I'm gonna punch you in the face until you agree that you will eat my body. Don't starve to death unnecessarily. Please eat me when I'm dead."
Mhm. And you can kinda
So
see Misty was like, "No, no, no," but then she kinda starts eyeballing her. She's like, Is that pulse still going in your neck there? Oh, okay.
yeah.
Alright."
She's, like, looking at her, she's like, "She's pretty tall.
She'd
A
be
lot
okay. She
of"
could feed us for a while.
Yeah. Um, but, yeah, if any of the girls are gonna go, like, Lottie would keep them the best fed because she towers over everybody.
Very true. Very and, yeah. And Thaisa's thinner than her. They're both the tallest, but Thaisa, she's not got as much meat on her bones. So I don't know, Lottie. It's not looking good for you.
Right? Um, but, yeah, Misty goes down and explains this, and everyone's just like, "No, she can't die." Um, and it's not just that they're saying, "We can't live without her," it's that they're saying she's not going to die because the wilderness won't let her.
Mhm,
Um, and they they decide like, Ty says, "We need to find a way to stay alive, and it can't be her."
mhm.
Now, did you take that as it can't be her because we need her, or it can't be her because the wilderness is gonna punish us if we try to make it happen?
I took it as it we need to find a way to survive and it can't be her, like, meaning we can't eat her body. Like, that can't be the way that we survive.
Gotcha.
Like,
Okay.
it just struck me as, like, sort of cannibal overtones. Like,
Okay.
she's not the body for us. And also, interestingly, like, Ty kinda woke up out of a sleep from that. And what was weird was, like, I feel like she was kinda laying there sleeping, and then Van says, um I can't imagine, being out here without her or something like that, or going on without her or something like that. And then Ty kind of wakes up. And so it's like, was that Ty or was that her, the other one that woke up and said
Yeah.
that? Because it seemed very like prophetic when she sat up and she's like, we need to find a way to survive. That's not her kind of thing. Um,
Well, did you see the look on her face when they were hunting Natalie down?
yeah, she looked pretty wild.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody was like, a little off the rails and making animal sounds, but the look on Ty's face did not look like regular Ty.
Yeah.
That looked like
Should
her
have been
alter.
that huntress. Well, and regular Ty didn't cannibalize. She didn't cannibalize
Right.
Jackie's body. That was the other one. So
She was horrified.
yeah, and she like threw it all up. So it wouldn't be regular Ty that would be out there hunting Javi like that. That had to be the other one overtook her. Like she was probably
Yeah.
when she was laying there because she looks like she was sort of like kind of at odds with herself when she sat up. It was almost like she was like fighting with herself a little bit. And so that's probably what it was, where she was like kind of shifting in and out of or in between her personalities.
Yeah, and she could be like she probably is at this point because they're so weak from hunger and everything. She
Mhm.
probably is like continuously straddling that line. Like,
That's what I say, the hungry wolf, that's what yeah, I said that in the antler video, the antler queen video. It's like I believe that's what she was trying because she starves herself throughout season 1 where she's trying to like
yeah,
bring that out of her. And I think that's why it's like she put herself in that physical state that she was in out there where her body is starving. She has no sleep. She's just entirely drained. She's a shell of a person, and then that's when the other one comes out. So yeah, I
yeah,
think that this whole episode she was, yeah, kind of straddling the line of which tie she was in that moment because
yeah,
they're
yeah,
so,
definitely.
and like the haziness, the hazy camera shots, and then yeah, just the starvation, the hunger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think at this point she probably is like a mixture of the two at all times.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so they now we flip really quickly to the present day, and Lottie's explaining to them that she doesn't understand. Or well, Shauna starts explaining she doesn't understand what's been happening to her, like between the affair with Adam and almost killing two randos. And Lottie's talking about like, she's having visions again, and she doesn't understand. She can't make sense of like something brought them all there, and she can't make sense of it. And she point like she's like Thaisa, Shauna, you're about to lose your family. Thaisa, you almost killed your wife and you killed your dog. Van, something's broken inside of you.
Hmm.
Um, and I forgot what she said to Natalie, but do you remember?
I think it was just about her putting her gun in her mouth kind of thing, or she
Okay,
was in so much pain
gotcha.
that she was going to end it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and she's like, the only way that we can get out of this is by giving the wilderness what it wants, one of us. Um, and then we go back to the past, and Lottie is actually seeing visions as they're happening, which is interesting. Like,
Hmm.
she's seeing a vision of what's going on downstairs at the moment,
Hmm.
um, which is really interesting. But like Van is shuffling the deck of cards with the newly found Queen of Hearts with the eye scratched out,
Hmm.
and whoever draws the Queen of Hearts is going to be killed for food.
Hmm.
So we both did some research on card symbolism. Um, I I don't know if the order meant anything, um, but I do want to point out I watched an interview with Liv Hewson today, that was just posted today. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think so. Is she wearing the purple suit?
I forgot what she was wearing. I don't think so. I want to say she had a t-shirt on.
Okay.
But
Maybe I didn't see that one.
it was a Collider Forces interview.
Okay, I think the one I
Um
watched was TV Insider.
okay, gotcha. Well, she said that where is it exact? Where's her? I'm looking for a quote. Okay. Um so she said during the interview, during our interview, Houston couldn't confirm. I'm sorry. Did I just misgender them? I apologize. I think I might have called them she. My apologies. Liv Houston. I always get it mixed up because I'm so like I always think of Liv as Van,
It's
who's female.
it can be hard because, like, yeah, and then the transference to Lauren, and it's like, they and she and they. Sometimes it can be a little bit. It gets a little
Yeah.
mixed up, but
So
we
yeah, so I
we are
apologize.
best intentioned.
Yeah, but yeah. So during the interview, Houston couldn't confirm if their significance to the other cards, but did reveal that they were not drawn randomly. Each one of them was scripted.
Mhm.
Um, and they said, okay, I don't know, but I will tell you the cards that we pull were written down in the script. And we asked on the day, we were like, do we have to decide what order the cards are in? And they were like, no, no, no. They made sure that they were in order so that every time each character drew the same one. Um, so and they also said the interviewer said, "What does it mean?" And Houston exclaimed, "I don't know. I have got no idea." Um, so like they clearly didn't look into it. Um, but let me just bring up here. I hope you guys can see this okay. Is that big enough?
Mhm.
Okay. So Misty pulls the 8 of diamonds, um, which just in the little bit of research I found. Well, actually, let's look at this chart first because so this is like the suits. And like I forget the history of playing cards versus tarot cards, but they were basically like kind of interchangeable at one point.
Yeah.
Um, and they when they were created, they were supposed to mirror tarot cards, right?
They can still be used mostly interchangeably. Just the difference is that you don't have the major arcana, which
Yeah,
are like your like the
the
sun card, the
sun
moon
and
card, tower,
yeah.
all of those the big cards. But you can it's mainly just the suits. So you just transfer them and you have them listed here where yeah, clubs are wands, hearts are cups, spades are swords, and uh
Diamonds are pentacles.
spades are fire. Or oh, diamonds are pentacles. Yeah. Spades and swords. Yeah.
Um, so clubs, which the tarot version is wands, um, clubs represent action, passion, and inspiration. And for who drew clubs here, we got I think it was just Travis.
Travis.
Yeah, just only Travis drew a club card. So that's action, passion, and inspiration. Hearts correspond with cups, and that's emotions, feelings, fulfillment, and love and loss. And for hearts, we got Van, Melissa, and Natalie. She drew the
Mhm.
queen. Um, and it's interesting that Natalie's the first person to draw the Queen of Hearts because she's the one that like fits that description the most, you know?
She definitely fits the description. And she's also like the one person that's kind of holding off on worshiping the wilderness in
Yeah.
essence. She's not
Yeah.
partaking in the prayers and like, even when Shauna was having the baby, she wasn't praying and all of that. So it is
Yeah.
interesting. Mhm.
For sure. And then spades are equal to swords. So if anybody knows anything about tarot, which I know you do, like I think it's the 9 of swords is the really bad card, right? That's like the death card. Or is it
Well,
the 10 of swords?
it's funny actually. I got the 9 of swords. So, the 9 of swords, it is a death card, or it's like a mourning. It's a sadness and loss. Um
Yeah.
and I oftentimes, not every week, but when I do my weekly live streams on Yellow Jackets, we've been pulling a tarot card. And the week that Shauna lost the baby, we pulled the Nine of Swords, and I was like, no. It was so
Yeah.
actually every card I end up pulling for Yellow Jackets is completely spot on, so it's so
Oh,
fun.
wow, that's so weird. Um, I, yeah, maybe I'll start experimenting with that just for fun.
It's fun.
Um, but yeah, so spades are connected to thought and communication, all the activity that goes on in our minds, head stuff. And spades, we got Aquila, Ty, and Javi. Um, and diamonds, aka pentacles, relate to the material word, all that we see and touch, money, work, practical projects, homes, etc. The practical aspects of relationships. And who got diamonds? Misty and Shauna. Um, so then we can look at the individual card meanings. So Misty pulled the 8 of diamonds, which in my research I found could represent new job, change of career, improving skills, undergoing training or teaching. Is that your kind of your understanding?
Yeah, I kind of also sort of like honing in your natural skills, or like applying your natural skills, which I felt is applicable for Misty, because she has a lot of really natural abilities, and we see that in this episode, like between her ability to, clean up the messes for her friends, to, really like caring for Lottie and being that person that's keeping her alive, taking care of her. Those are her natural skills, and she finds her ways to apply them, to put them
Yeah.
to everyday use, more so than the other like she has practical abilities.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely the most out of any of them.
Hmm.
Um Aquila got the 7 of spades, which I have here is materially well off, yet spiritually dissatisfied, looking for a possible new direction. So what's your take on that?
um yes, I think that what like with that one, I think that there's there's some secretive nature in that card also, where like um you have to decide like what impulses you're giving into and that kind of thing. So like with Aquila, she is such a kind, gentle soul. She's always looking out for the group and like taking care of them. But then on the flip side, she's sort of like giving into this impulse with her mouse, and keeping the secret, and keeping him hidden, and sneaking him food. And this is her little guy where, like, I mean, yeah, a mouse is not going to like feed the group. So sure, let her keep her little mouse. It's not that big of a deal. Um but it does show that she has sort of the impulse to do things that are secretive, um to try and find some modicum of happiness in this harsh situation. So yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Um so Van got the Jack of Hearts. Um a person who is in love with being in love, romantic suitor, short-term love affair. I love this one because Van is like out of that whole group. I mean, like, I have seen very few relationships as beautiful as Van and Thaisa's,
Hmm.
and, like, the way that Van is with Ty is just so heartbreakingly beautiful.
Hmm.
Like, she just loves so hard. Like, it's Jade and I always say, like, she's the kind, like, you just wife up right away.
Hmm.
So what's your take on that?
Well, this is a great card because it's got a lot of meaning behind it, and even more than just love per se, like it's also hugely about sacrifice and like making sacrifices for love, which I think is really important to Van's character. Um and also to tie, to tie as her partner, like who's going to be making the sacrifice for love kind of thing. Especially with, what we've learned about Van. This card is also called the Christ card because it is
Oh,
so intertwined with like sacrifice for love and for like humanity, serving humanity. So I think
gotcha.
that's pretty interesting for
Okay.
Van. Yeah.
So Shauna got 4 of diamonds, which is guarding resources, not socializing, holding oneself apart from society, which is really interesting considering how this season started off.
Hmm. Her
Um,
card is spot on.
yeah. Yeah, like what can you add
Well,
to that?
like I took it as, she like I what I also know of this card is that it's about kind of like hoarding material wealth, hoarding money, having like a money oriented person around you, or you yourself, which I mean, I think that applies to Shauna and Jeff very much. But yeah, not socializing, just sort of like hoarding to yourself kind of thing. I think that's the place that she's in, or I think that's the place she's been driven towards in her younger years, but I think she ends up staying there until, all through until the modern storyline.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mhm.
she's a pack rat, she can't get rid of things.
Mhm.
Um, she
She
keeps
even had
everybody at arm's
4
length.
journals that
Yeah,
they burned, 4 journals in the
yeah,
diamond shape in the barbecue. I mean, anyways,
yeah, yeah.
interesting.
That's really interesting. I wonder
Yeah.
if that was deliberate.
I have always thought there was something about those journals. You know what I always drew the parallel to was the way that the journals were positioned for some reason reminded me of that scene where they're in Adam's apartment and his body's laying on the floor and it's the 4 of them are standing around him and the shot is kind of that same angle. For some reason those two just always like stood out to me. But that's yeah,
Yeah,
it's on top of it another layer. I love it.
yeah, totally. I'm just so fascinated by this because I like, my tendency is to, like, dive way too deep into everything,
Mhm.
but, once I was thinking about it when I watched this and they started pulling the cards, I immediately thought, "Okay, I wonder if there's some symbolism behind this." Then I was like, "No, I'm probably reading too much into it." But then when I saw the interview with Liv Hewson and they said that they were specifically scripted to each pull these specific cards, I was like, "Oh, okay, there's something behind it." Um, so then Travis gets the ace of clubs. Um, Spark of inspiration, passion, a new love affair, the idea for a business or life change.
Mhm.
I found a lot of information on this card in particular. There's a strong desire for knowledge. They prefer to study in groups and learn readily. Lasting friendship, lasting friendship is established for like minds and people with a thirst for knowledge and intelligence. They prefer a specialty rather than to be business owners. They are bored with ignorance and stupidity. That sounds a lot like his kind of it reminds me a lot of his, like, spiritual awakening,
Mhm.
Like, what
Definitely.
what would you add to that?
I think, I love it. Like, I also think, with Travis, right now he is the last man standing. So my thought for it was like, okay, he did have the idea when Shauna was having the baby, it was his idea to take the skull down and, start doing the offerings to it and that kind of thing. But I feel like Travis has to come up with a way to make himself useful because he is the last man and he's watched his brother be killed, his father died, coach is gone, he's the last man standing. So if he doesn't make himself valuable or make himself useful, present a new idea, present something that you are, that you're useful for or like you're required for, then um then you better start watching your back. So I think that's going to drive him to become this spark of inspiration, or like a new idea, a new I think the notes I had said something like a planting a seed of something or another. Anyhow, yeah.
Gotcha.
But it's also like
Okay.
let me look at my notes really quick. It was something like, let me pull this.
Sorry, I'm
Oh, I
just
don't know
checking
where
the
it went.
chart again.
But yeah, just essentially like it's a seed of creativity, but it can also represent fertility. And again,
Oh,
with him being the only, man, we don't know if that's like the, necessarily like baby fertility, but it might just be like that sort of that male representation of um like a green man kind of thing, growth, new life, new like food and fertility and all of that kind of stuff. Actually, that would be really cool. I just said that off just spitballing,
yeah.
but give me Travis and Symbolism. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, I got the 6 of spades. Moving on, a change of direction, travel, putting the past behind you, which he's clearly not doing right now.
I got, on my research, I found that card is really associated with um, finding the balance between it's it represents life and death, but it also represents work and spirituality, and it's all about finding the balance between those things.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's a lot more interesting.
Especially the
Sure.
life and death thing for her, because of her connection to the man with no eyes, So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, then we have Melissa, which I mean, we don't really know much about Melissa. But she
Which
got the 3 of hearts, which is celebration of friendship, a girls' or boys' night out, end of an emotional cycle. The native can be an awesome diagnostician and healer. They shall not be counted much on family support and will have to learn and discover their talents independently. They are thrown back upon themselves. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's very interesting that she got that card, because the 3 of hearts is like a pretty joyful card. It's like pretty positive. It's like a message of positivity, and it's all about like coming together and partnership and that kind of thing. And so I think it's interesting that she got that card. I also think it's interesting that like they feature her drawing a card anyways, because she is kind of a minor character, and there were other characters who are more like we're more invested in, that did not, like Mari didn't draw a card,
Yeah.
so but Melissa did. So it's kind of interesting, like, does that prove that she's going to be more intertwined in the story? And I actually have my own theories on Melissa, and that she is going to become more involved in the story, and actually I think she's going to be friends with Shauna, but
Oh, okay.
but that's my own goddess symbolism predictions.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
long story
Um,
short.
yeah, no, my take on that, because I picked up on that right away that we didn't see everybody choose a card.
Mhm.
And my take on that was that um I feel like, with the exception, with one very obvious exception, I feel like these could be the survivors.
Yeah.
Um and so so that would mean that Jen and Mari are both going to die.
Yeah.
And Ben, I think, is kind of a wild card.
Mhm.
Um, like, he didn't participate in the drawing of the cards, but he also might not have been included in that cannibal council in the first scene, because, like, he might just be sitting inside because he doesn't get around as well. And they could just
Yeah.
be like taking care of him, you know?
And he just may like still not be partaking or something like that. So, I mean, he
Yeah,
didn't before, so I don't know.
right.
It's a good question.
Um, Yeah, I think but he was not even in the circle. Everyone was in the circle except for him and Lottie.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that kind of makes him a little bit of a wild card. Um, Javi got King of Spades, which apparently, from what I read, the kings are actually supposed to represent real kings, and the King of Spades, I guess, is supposed to be King David. Um, I know nothing about King David. Um, so I don't, yeah, I can't. There's nothing I can really um, add to that. Add to that, but professional, good at his job, highly motivated and intelligent advisor, lawyer, accountant, writer, which that seemed a little weird to me. What's your take on that?
I so what I found about this card is that it's like it represents wisdom, and it has like a strong masculine influence, somebody that's going to guide you to your, where you should be. But my favorite thing that I found about this card is that it is the card for the highest initiate. And I
Oh,
just thought
right.
that was like so interesting for Javi because, he like he went and was gone for all that time. He found, the cave to survive, and had a place, had shelter, but it seems like he gained some really important knowledge while he was there, whether it be like hermetic knowledge or, just survival knowledge or, more information on what's actually going on out there in the forest, whoever his friend was, that kind of thing. So I feel like, and then he comes back and he won't say anything because I think that took that took wisdom on his part anyways, to not say anything,
Yeah.
to not say where he has been, to keep that secret, to protect whatever, whether that just be to protect himself and this, potential other person that's out there, or just for whatever reason, like he kept that knowledge that he had gained and his secrets to himself, and he died with that information. And that's what's like really tragic because, if he is some sort of initiate or has some sacred knowledge or, some secrets from out there, then that's now who's gonna know that. We have like his cryptic drawings that we can glean information from, and those are sort of like the mysteries. Like this is the mystery religion of Javi.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So it is really fascinating.
Um, and then Natalie draws the Queen of Hearts, which obviously in this show means you're the one that's gonna die. Um, but what I got here is someone to turn to. She offers emotional support, a listening ear. Watch out for darker undercurrents. She may have problems of her own. Like, talk about spot on, you
Mhm.
know? Um, so what would you add to that?
I think that's correct. The Queen of Hearts is sort of like the symbol of virtue and love and, of kindness and, um she's who we should strive to be, right? And it's a
Yeah.
feminine influence, it's a feminine card. And I think that Natalie really like embodies a lot of those qualities. For as much as she tries to always be the bad girl and this and that, it's because she is so heart-centered and like so emotional. That's the reason why she puts up this tough front. So
Mhm.
yeah, her like the Queen of Hearts card itself, definitely I think she like embodies those qualities. But of course, like her reasons that she drew the Queen of Hearts, for Yellow Jackets purposes, that's a different question.
Yeah. Um, now what's funny is that, like, obviously we know Natalie doesn't die.
Mhm,
Um, but, like, I still felt so much anxiety watching this.
mhm.
Like, I mean, my heart was racing just watching this. I was like, "Holy shit." Like, I can't imagine how I would be freaking out if we didn't know that she survived, you know?
Yeah. It was a
Um
really intense scene. It was so
mhm.
good. Like, honestly, I think it was I mean, I think this is probably the best episode of the season so far, in my opinion. Like, it was
Yeah.
just on par with, well, I mean, I guess, obviously episode 2 was pretty, the Bacchanal scene was epic. And also, like,
Yeah.
well, there's definitely, yeah. Anyways, I won't I'm not signing that contract, I think that, like, yeah, I mean, the second half of this episode in particular, it was just so good. The whole thing was so intense, and it really, like, it was so reminiscent of Doom Coming, which is my ultimate favorite episode.
Oh,
All
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Doom Coming so fucking much. But so yeah,
Same.
since they had so many similar overtones, like, um, it was really fun and it really sucked you in. And once the hunt started, it was like, oh my god, this is such Doom Coming vibes. So it was awesome.
Yeah, it really was. And she, like, I love that, Shauna tells her to turn around, and she
Mhm.
puts the necklace on her. Um, which I think everybody started theorizing pretty early on that the necklace was gonna be, like, put on whoever was gonna die.
Mhm.
Um, but she tells her to turn around, and she puts the necklace on her, and she's about to slit her throat, and Natalie turns around and she says, "You're gonna have to look me in the eye." And Shauna can't do it,
Mhm.
and she spends so much time struggling that Travis finally just tackles her. And he starts knocking the girls out, like, fighting them off.
It was epic. It was so crazy in there.
Yeah, yeah, and, she and he it was so what was so funny about this was, like, such a recreation of the Doom Coming episode because, he like, where she saved him, and
Mhm.
now he's saving her,
Mhm.
and he tells her to run, and she takes off running. So, like, that kinda reminded me of Shauna telling Javi to run,
Mhm.
and, so she takes off running, and I'm gonna go back to, like I said, we watched the season 2 premiere today,
Mhm.
and it just, like it made the scene at the end of that episode where Natalie's running through the woods from the cult people, it made it that much more tense. 'Cause it's like,
Oh,
holy shit, she's probably having total flashbacks right now.
yeah, totally. That's interesting. That's a good point.
Yeah, and
And she,
and
like, hides behind the tree at one point. Oh
that's
my
when it
god.
hit me, when she was hiding behind the tree.
Yeah,
I was like, "Holy shit, that's like the same shot."
totally. That's
Um,
awesome. They yeah,
yeah,
they did some great shots.
and
This was a great episode. It
it
really
and it
was.
really it definitely, like, gives some insight as to why she just, like, flipped out on Lottie the way that she did and was gonna bash her head in.
Totally. That's a great, yeah, that's a good point.
Um, but yeah, so the girls are like, a couple of girls stay behind, and they,
Like, hold
they hold a
Travis.
knife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically hold him hostage. They've got a knife to his throat, and the others are like, Van grabs the skewer that's on like, the
Mhm.
giant skewer,
That
and
rebar thing, yeah.
yeah, and Misty's got, like, a pickaxe, and they're all like, "She's getting away," and they start chasing after her and making animal calls,
Mhm.
um, and Javi runs out, and Javi just, Javi looks looking freaked out, and I think, he just it's like, "Okay, my brother's right here with a knife to his throat. He almost died, like, several months ago from this same situation,
Totally.
but I need to go after Natalie," and he's just like you could tell he just, like, doesn't know what to do, and then he just takes off. Um,
I think it
and
was
did
like,
you
oh, go ahead.
No, did you think that he was joining in on the hunt at that point, or did you think, like, he was
I thought he was running, like he was gonna go back to his cave and hide because I
Gotcha.
felt like it was so similar to Doom Coming where and that's what they had sent him away to, like, go hide, run.
Yeah.
And seeing his brother again with the knife to his throat and just the girls like in their sort of maniac frenzied state and they just they go right into it and they're all so disoriented anyways like at this point because of the hunger and just whatever effects the cabin is having on them or if they're if they have mercury poisoning or whatever is going on they're all just out of their minds and um but Javi, going like since he's had that time away from it, he can sort of look at it a little more subjectively and he may also if there is like a mercury poisoning situation, perhaps he's not been as heavily like poisoned by it, so he may be thinking more clearly. But
Yeah.
I thought that it was very sweet and kind that he like, put himself out there to save Nat. And
Yeah.
um yeah, it it's so bittersweet because like all they're so intertwined with each other. Javi, Travis, and Nat and Javi's fate and all of that happens to him. He went missing and then the whole thing with the bloody pants and then he comes back and it's like did that what happened here was this due to the sacrifice or like were the pants an actual sacrifice because she put her blood on them and then burned them or was it just a fake out that she should feel guilty for there's so many ways of looking at it and then Javi comes back and then they like Travis is angry with Nat because he comes back and it's just all this stuff and then he finally forgives her and then this happens and you can see why Nat would feel so sort of obligated to Travis over and over
Yeah.
again um and throughout their whole lives and so yeah it's really tragic and I had this idea actually that like what if in their older ages when they're, tapping into their wilderness and this and that, like, and we saw that Lottie in that moment with Travis, when he was dying, she saw Laura Lee. Well,
Yeah.
what if, like, in those moments when Natalie was almost dying, and it seemed like Travis may be actually communicating with the wilderness or whatever. What if it was Javi? What if he saw Javi?
Yeah.
What if, like,
Yeah.
the way that Lottie was seeing Laura Lee was the same like, Travis was seeing Javi, and he's like, "I need to communicate with it. I need to, I need to talk to it." And what if he found out about like, how Javi died or, like, because I have a feeling they're not gonna be entirely honest with Travis about Javi's death, you know?
Oh,
Like
no, I don't think so at all.
yeah. I mean, I think they'll say, "Oh, he fell in the water," but they're not gonna say, "We stood there and waited for him to die," kinda thing. And so,
Yeah.
like, if in the this is kind of like a big if, but if when they're tapping into their, death, this life and death portal and communicating with this wilderness, like what if that's what Travis is seeing and he sees Javi and what if this like Javi told him, "Oh, they killed me. They killed me out there. They let me die." And this, builds even more resentment with everyone and maybe that's part of why Travis was like, Nat can't help with this. I don't call Nat because she can't fix this. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's a lot of tragedy, and why he might even ultimately turn to Lottie because she wasn't out there when Javi died. She wasn't part of that. So
Right.
there's so many layers to it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I saw some I saw a comment from somebody that they weren't crazy, like, they like the song, but they weren't crazy about it being used during the scene. I thought it was just, like, absolutely perfect.
Oh, I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
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 It
I thought it was a great musical moment.
I'm not even a fan of Smashing Pumpkins, but like that song, it has its time and place for sure. And yeah, this was one of those. This was a time and place for that song. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of my probably in my top 3 favorite Smashing Pumpkin songs.
Yeah.
But, it's I mean, it's very, like it's very evocative of what's happening at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, and it's also very it's kind of a, the meaning behind the song, it also kind of, like, goes hand in hand with Natalie's character a lot too.
Hmm.
So it's like I thought it was perfect.
Bullet with butterfly wings. Yeah, that's totally
Yeah.
Nat.
And, but yeah, so, like, while this is going on, um, in the present, we 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 flash to the present really quick, and we go back to Lottie and everybody, and she's she's saying that the only way they can get themselves out of this mess is to give the wilderness one of them. Um, she then presents a tray filled with cups of a phenobarbital cocktail. Um, and she wants them to each choose a cup, and she's willing to go last to make it fair, so she doesn't have any influence. Um, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, seriously. Like, okay, Lottie, like what?
Like,
she that took a that things changed quickly. I can't
yeah,
think of
yeah,
it.
talk about
Sorry.
escalating quickly, man.
Yeah,
That's
thank you. That's the one.
like, what the hell? It's like my friend and I got into a fight. She's kinda bugging me. You know what? I'm just gonna kill her. It's
Definitely
kinda like that.
the parallel to Nat earlier in the episode where she's like, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if she died.
Yeah. I'm gonna I feel like treating myself today. I'm gonna go out and buy myself a nice lunch, and I come home with a private jet. It's like
Exactly. My
I mean,
question is like, how does she have a lethal amount of phenobarbital on hand? Because first of all, that's a controlled substance. Second of all, that's not what they use to euthanize animals. And third of all, if you had a euthanol solution, then you would also need to have a licensed physician or veterinarian on staff at the facility. So there was a lot. I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of holes to
they
poke in
may
that one.
have one. Wait, did they really? Because I knew what phenobarbital was. Do they, do they? Because I always thought that's what they gave dogs to euthanize them. They don't. That's not what they use.
I think there might be some of that in the solution, but they have like it's a euthanol solution, which is essentially like an overdose of anesthetic, and so they just go to
Okay,
sleep. Yeah,
gotcha. I've taken phenobarbital before.
yeah, shit.
No, actually, it's funny because no, I have taken phenobarbital before accidentally. Um, I my dog was actually on it for a
Hmm.
number of years for seizures. Um, and I it's oh god, and it reminded me this episode totally triggered me to something that I had completely forgotten about. And that was, like, when my dog when he first went on the phenobarbital, like and he had to go to the vet every month
Hmm.
to get blood tests to make sure that it was a therapeutic dose that wasn't too much and, but it was still working. And so, there's a period of time in the beginning where you're trying to get the dosage right, and it was just like it was so I almost wanted to cry thinking about it. It was heartbreaking in the beginning because
Hmm.
he was on too high of a dose and, like, he couldn't even walk straight, like
Hmm.
he was walking into walls and shit. It was just like, "Oh my god." And then,
Yeah.
once they got the dosage right, then, he was good to go. He was and, he actually lived to be 14,
Oh
um,
wow.
which is really long for a dog that's on phenobarbital for a number of
Yeah.
years.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, but I accidentally took one of his pills one time instead of my medication. I don't remember what happened. I think I just got really tired.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those where it just makes you really tired. And that, I mean, you could use it as like a, you know, a an option for euthanizing, but it's just you'd have to give a lot. And I don't know. It was
Yeah.
just kind of a funny it was a kind of a funny scene there. I was like, "Really?
Yeah.
Lottie, you just have." And then it's like, "Well, why do you have like I mean, I don't know if the dosages for euthanizing an animal would be the same as for euthanizing a human." And so, she's just willing. And all right, I will say this because I'm going to include this. I'm working on a video about the cards and some other things surrounding the cards, but by the time this comes
Yay!
out, then should have the video. I should have the video out, so I will share this with you guys.
Awesome.
But so I had this thought where basically it was okay. So Lottie, she's drawn the queen card. She already drew the queen card, and for all of like her, her preaching to to be honest and oh, I think it's time to surrender and yada yada, but she's not been honest with the other girls about the fact that the queen card came to her. And so we see with Nat, who is sort of able to find like a bargain in essence, like by with Javi. And we even see like that's part of Travis being held hostage there, because it was like, well, if Nat got away, they still had Travis, and so he would have been the replacement if Nat had gotten away. But
Yeah.
um but I think it's really interesting. So you can bargain. Like if you get the queen card, you can bargain. Somebody can replace because it chooses, right? But
Mhm.
Lottie got the queen card and she hasn't been honest, and now she's trying to bargain away her fate, her destiny to
Yeah.
be the queen of hearts. And she's not told anyone, but she's willing to play that game of life and death and potentially kill one of her friends in order to save her own skin.
That's a
But
good point. I hadn't thought about that.
yeah,
That's
so
really smart insight.
it's just interesting that she's not being honest. She's the one keeping secrets now. Shauna, she's spilled the beans. Ty's spilled the beans about Jessica Roberts. Everyone's coming clean, being honest. Misty's told her secrets and all of this and that, but Lottie's not. And Lottie's the one who's supposed to be guiding them, this goddess person, their goddess leader, and she's the one keeping secrets and potentially like willing to, pay for her own life with one of theirs. So I just think it's kind of
Yeah, wow, wow. That's really a devastating revelation. Good catch, man.
yeah.
That my god. Oh, that's totally fucking me up now. I'm gonna be just, like, laying awake all night thinking about this.
There's such a
Like,
shift in Lottie right now because we are seeing Natalie like really stepping into that healer position where she's really embracing that ability, but on the same time Lottie's shifting out of that. Lottie's no longer, in that healer position. She's really shifting into like a darker place where like she's having the visions of her therapist that turned out were just, the antler queen, or potentially like the queen of hearts sort of haunting her, which I think is also like a parallel to what Travis went through. Travis, like in his final act, his final moments, was like, I just have to communicate with it, and then it'll leave us alone. And so now, and like the wilderness is like haunting him. Oh, it's haunting me. I just have to talk to it. It'll leave me alone. Well, now I feel like Lottie's doing the exact same thing. I just have to communicate. I have to give it what it wants, and then it'll leave me alone. But what it really wants is
yeah.
her. So,
God, that is so fascinating. Um, you know what? I will say that what happened in this episode actually made me, um, reinforce a theory that I have, that I've had for a long time, actually. And that's that, so in the opening scene in the pilot,
Mhm,
um, we see Pit Girl. She's not even like, she doesn't have shoes on. All she's wearing is this nightgown.
mhm,
Um, she has dark hair. Everybody else is fully covered. Um, and then at the end, after they kill her and eat her, at the very end, the last thing you see is Misty taking the pelt off her head and smiling.
Mhm.
And I've had this theory, and this episode totally reinforces it, that my theory is that Pit Girl was supposed to be Misty, and she interfered to save herself somehow.
Oh, interesting.
And that's why she was smiling.
That's a good point.
Because because she was supposed to be Pit Girl, and something happened where she either Pit Girl fell into the pit,
Mhm,
and Misty could have been chasing her and steering her toward the pit.
mhm.
Um, when the rest of the group could have been chasing her, for all we
Yeah,
know.
it's definitely like a parallel to Crystal's death, where she's like walking her walking her off the edge kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Um, yeah, and and Misty also interfered with Ben dying.
Mhm.
Um, so that's interesting to think about. Um, yeah, so and and Shauna is also like, I mean, obviously it wasn't Misty's fault. Like she tried really hard to like help deliver Shauna's baby, but like Shauna was blaming her for the baby's death,
Mhm.
Like there's some interference happening here. And I wonder if I really wonder if Misty, I feel like there's a way that everybody may have contributed to Javi dying instead of Natalie for some reason, in some way.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. It's just it's curious to me. But yeah, so like Javi tells Natalie, and I at this point I think he's only spoken to Ben, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he catches up to Natalie. He tells her, "I know of a place we can go. The others don't know about it." And which I was so happy about, because like ever since our listener Jason, actually I'm going to tell you, I need to tell you exactly. I'll talk as I look this up, because um I mean, this is how long I've been subscribing to this theory. Um our listener Jason sent a sent us an email. Yeah, this was all the way back on June 7th
Oh
of
wow.
2022. Um, and I hadn't thought about this possibility, but he suggested, um he's the one who talked about underground mines, and
Mhm.
um that could be where Javi is. And I was like, and I did some research on it. I was like, oh, there actually are like underground mines and stuff in that area.
Mhm.
Um and so I've been like obsessed with that theory ever since um he mentioned it. And so I was so happy to finally, like, after holding on to that theory for so long, I was so happy to finally see it,
Mhm.
like, to see it out there. So Jason, if you're still, I think you're still listening or watching. So major props to you, because like that was such a great piece of insight. And that email, that was the very first email that our podcast ever got. And it's like I almost want to frame it and put it on the wall.
That's awesome.
um but yeah, so we but then right after he says that, and they start running off together, then we see Ben, who finally finds the tree. I mean, he's clearly been at it all night trying to get there. Um and he finally finds it, and then he finds that it's hollow, looks down and sees this giant cavern.
Mhm.
Gets down in there, he sees a fire pit, a bunch of animal bones, and the missing lantern.
Mhm.
which is confirmation that, that Javi was hiding out in there.
Mhm.
I didn't catch the lantern on the first viewing. I caught it on the second one.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
but
also like it looked like there's like a little hot spring in there, like a little hot
oh,
water spring. Yeah.
okay. So that would explain why it was warmer in that area.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, so yeah, so then it goes back to the girls hunting Natalie, and
Mhm.
she's running across the frozen lake with Javi. Um, and this was so heartbreaking. Like the ice just cracks underneath his feet. He falls in. And what was your first thought when this happened?
Well, like I think, I was with Nat. Like I didn't even think. It was like my natural instinct to save Javi. And I feel like Javi is he's the youngest. He's so special to everyone, but especially like to Travis and like Nat, and her whole thing with Travis. Of course, Nat, her instinct is going to be to protect Javi, especially after he just did the same for her. And so, you know, it was so sad. It was so heartbreaking to see because yeah, she went right for it. I mean, she did exactly what I would do, jump in,
Yeah.
jump, try and save him and scream, you girls call off the hunt, call off the bullshit. We have to save Javi. He's not like us. He's not one of us. He's not
He was
like a
trying to save
crazy.
her.
Yeah, he's not part of this, okay? He is
Mhm.
excluded from. I mean, it would have sucked if he would have been the one to get the queen card because I'm sure they all would have been all over him. Probably not Nat and probably not Travis, but like the thing is Javi is just like a more precious. He's a child. It's, like he's been idealized as a child. Even when they had the fight, it was take Javi in the other room, protect
Yeah.
his innocent eyes or what have you, even though he's seen more than anyone else. Um, but yeah, so it was really tragic to to see Nat sort of have to go through that thought process, that change of heart. And well, it was really like it was true. I mean, it was true. If she would have saved him, then they would have all gone for her and got the hunt would have been back on, and
Mhm.
so it was pretty messed up. It was pretty sad.
I could not the only thing that I could think of as soon as he fell through that ice, all that I could think about was the moose.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Um, and so, like, when Natalie saw the moose when she was in
That
the
moose.
plane,
That fucking
I
moose.
mean, do you think that moose was really there, or was that, like, a vision that she was having of, like of basically Javi falling of, like I mean, I know we saw the moose fall through the ice, but was that, like, a vision
I think
indicating, like, Javi's fate?
yeah, like some weird foreshadowing. Yeah, because I get like the moose is a sacred animal to like the First Nations people in Canada. And so like Javi is sort of the same, he's like the human representation of that, right? Like to the
Yeah.
other girls, it was, it's like I was saying, like he's excluded. He's not part of this. He's not part of the savage shenanigans, that they are partaking in. Like he's a child. And so he's kind of like the same. He's kind of like he's a sacred animal. He doesn't partake in this, we're not going to eat of his flesh, but really they are because and it's kind of yeah, it brings to mind like is that an exchange. I had a lot of feelings about the white moose and Nat and
Yeah.
their intermingling and like and like Shauna and the baby and how the placenta was disrupted and all of that. I think that all happened out at the lake. And we even saw with Shauna in that moment, like when they go to grab Javi out and pull him up, Shauna is not one of those people. She learned her lesson.
No.
She's not
Yeah.
pulling anybody up out of that ice anymore. That's how she lost the baby. That's my hill I'll die on. That's what started that. But I
Yeah.
think there's even more to that because I feel like the white moose was sort of protecting her from her baby being like possessed by the curse, the French curse or whatever, the wilderness curse or what have you. It's a lot. There's a lot to it. But this is an additional
Yeah.
layer. This is another layer to it, where now Javi, he's like a representation of that, but it's also like a gift to them that now they have food. So,
I feel like I could do an entire episode of the parallels between Javi and the moose.
mhm, totally.
I mean, like, white moose is supposed to be good luck,
Mhm,
and that white moose, Natalie couldn't kill the moose. She then they find it in like in the frozen ground, but in the lake, but they couldn't retrieve it.
mhm,
Um and then she's supposed to die, and then Javi takes her place.
mhm.
Like,
That's a
it's
good point
just,
too.
yeah. Um yeah, so that could be, the good luck from the moose
Mhm,
vision basically coming true.
mhm.
Um and and yeah, and like this is going to fuck her up for a while, I think.
I think it's
Um
gonna fuck her up forever. Like, I think this is
yeah.
a huge thing that like leads into their adult lives. I think it's a big part of her and Travis and like their drug addiction. I think they have like a trauma bond through this. Our trauma bond. Uh but they definitely do, like with all the things that happened to Javi. Um I feel like, I mean, it's going to depend on how it's all presented to Travis, but there's a shot of Travis eating in the next episode. So, and it
Yep.
looks like it was his heart.
Yeah,
So, and I think
I
there's a
saw that.
lot to that. I think there's like some symbolic, ritualistic cannibalism in that regard with Travis and Javi. And
Mhm.
like the idea of sin eating and that kind of thing. So but of course we'll see how that all plays out in the next episode. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like Travis the heartache he's
Yeah.
gonna have to endure and like the story that they're gonna have to come up with to tell him
Oh
because
my god.
that's his
I
brother,
still want to know what happened to Crystal's body too.
Well,
Um
I don't know, but in the cave, I noticed like those bones were those weren't human. They were
right.
definitely animal bones, but there was one human tooth in there. Did you notice that?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that tooth was definitely human and it was larger than, it didn't look like it kind of matched the bones that were out there. My husband and
Yeah,
I spend a lot of
wow.
time studying the bones because we're like, because I saw somebody tweet that it could have been Shauna's baby. And I was like, no, 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 no. I don't want to hear that. But then I was looking at the bones. I was like, there's no way those are Shauna's baby's bones. They're way too dense. They're too like
Yeah.
calcified and they're too hard and big and dense. And like the baby bones would be very like, yeah. Anyways, we don't have to get into all that, but they wouldn't be that dense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm thinking more about this, and I've always been fascinated by the conversation um that they had in Thaisa's Range Rover or Land Rover or whatever, in season 1, when they chased down the blackmailer. And Shauna said Shauna made the like, Thaisa said that Natalie's the reason they got out of there.
Mhm.
And Shauna said, to Natalie, "Don't drag us into your endless pit of guilt." And which is interesting. I always thought, like, because I picked up on the word pit right away, and I was like, "Oh, pit, like
Mhm.
pit girl, like that pit we saw." But now I'm thinking, like, that might have been foreshadowing for Javi.
Mhm.
Um, but, I told you my theory about Misty and why she was smiling at the end. Now I'm wondering if, like, because Natalie escaped death, if maybe she's gonna get Shauna, maybe, like, at some point, Shauna and Ty also draw the queen card,
Interesting.
and she does something to, like, help them survive, and somebody else dies.
Well, like, if anyone okay, so, like, yeah, if anyone would be trying to, like, manipulate that, it would probably be Nat, and also there's the scene that is in the intro, I think, that we haven't seen yet in the show is Natalie burning the queen card.
Yes.
So, yeah, so and I'm guessing it's probably gonna be in the final episode and probably, like, a way for them to kinda, like, reclaim their power or something, or try to, like, manipulate that, their fate or something like that, but, I mean, yeah, that's
I
interesting.
just hope I hope to God that Natalie doesn't take this all on and starts thinking that, like, I this is all happening because I escaped death, because
Mhm.
Javi took my place, and the wilderness wants me.
Maybe she's, like yeah, maybe she sort of permanently becomes, like she identifies with the Queen of Hearts. Like,
Yeah.
maybe she is the Antler Queen, like, we saw
Yeah.
that vision of her on the plane where she's, like, having that kind of flashback vision, and she's dressed up as the Antler Queen, so, like, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
God, this was such a fascinating episode. There's, like,
It
this
really
episode gave us more to unpack, I think, than it did all season.
Yeah,
Like,
this and it's a lot of fun to unpack all of this. I mean, oh, I feel like we've been waiting for this episode. It was like
this is
episode
holy
2.
crap,
Yeah.
3.5 hours.
I know,
I
it's like
joked. I joked that this was gonna be a 4-hour-long podcast, and oh my god. Well, I'm gonna get a hell of a lot of content out of this because I'll probably, like, put the full episode up and then break it into, like, 10 different pieces. Put those all separately. 'Cause holy crap. Oh my god, Erin, you are such a trooper. Um,
Well,
but,
thank you.
no, like, did you notice though that, did you notice the look on Van's face as when Javi died? Like, it was brutal.
Mhm. And then in the end, she's like, "The wilderness chose." Like, she was really repping the wilderness out there, because even, like, you know, Liv Houston said in that interview that it was Van's idea to draw the cards.
Yeah.
So and then she's the one, that shuffles and all of that. So it's like, and I think that's kind of intertwined with Van's identity, because, like, in the future, the shop that they own, and the the sort of arrested development,
Yeah.
but like that the theme of, like, the 90s, and playing the card game as, like, a game of chance, essentially. um I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting. It's, like, perfect for for Van's character, but but yeah, she really, or they really, like, descend into that sort of darkness, because Van's always been. And then in the last episode, when Van and Ty are talking, and they say, that, they don't know their purpose anymore. It's kind of like Nat. I always equate that conversation to Nat in the very first episode, where she's like, you have to have a purpose, and that's the most important thing. And I think that that's something that all the characters are, struggling with, is finding their purpose, knowing what their purpose is, and having one in everyday life. Whereas when you're out in the wilderness and you're surviving, you know what your purpose is. It's survival every single day. But back in normal life, it's just normal life. There's no struggle, right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's something that Van is struggling with really a lot, like a real problem. And I guess they found their purpose and I don't know, being the jack of hearts. I mean, really, that or the yeah, it is kind of a jack of hearts. Like, okay, all right, and it's such a
Ah,
playful, card to have assigned to you.
right.
So yeah, I think that it's yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I
Got
don't know
it.
where I'm going exactly with that, but I just think there's a lot to it.
Now, when you brought up the whole finding a purpose thing, it made me think. I wonder, like, because when Natalie said she found her purpose in rehab,
Mhm.
her purpose was clearly to respond to these postcards by flying back to New Jersey and hunting Misty down. That was her purpose.
Yeah.
And what if she decides that her purpose is to kill Lottie?
I would not discount that idea from being present in her mind. Like
Yeah.
because I still feel like Nat has something going on in her mind in the background.
Mhm.
Like, I have a hard time believing that she's, swallowing all the bullshit that's going on at Lottie's compound and with a smile. Nat's just not that
Yeah.
person. She's not that compliant. She's not that, she's not a I'm not really a joiner. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So,
I like, because I mean, I'm assuming that she wanted to hunt Misty down because she thought, well, yeah, she thought Misty sent the postcards.
mhm.
And like, for some reason, I feel like for some reason she thought that she assumed it was Misty because like she felt like Misty maybe wanting to recreate this or something. So
Mhm.
now that's going to transfer to Lottie because Lottie started this all up again. Like, whew. I just did you see like because they were all putting on masks in the
Mhm.
preview? Did you
Mhm.
see Natalie put one on?
I don't think
'Cause I don't
so.
remember.
I think I I think they may have just shown I know they showed Van and Ty and
Yeah.
Lottie, and I think that may be all that they showed with masks on.
Okay. It'll be interesting if they if the headlines on the news were actually on that news site were actually accurate and if like they're doing this hunt and like in a severe storm rolls through,
Yeah,
you know. That's
should be
gonna
really interesting. I don't know.
yeah.
The finale is going to be crazy. Oh, I'm so excited.
I
I'm
know.
nervous if they're hanging around just doing rituals and stuff. Like I feel like they are on like this is a ticking time bomb. Like they need to get out of it. I think they need to get back to the wilderness. That's my like overall theory. Like I feel like that's where the older girls, the older women are going to ultimately be headed towards because they have to get out of Dodge. Shauna is a wanted woman. They're all going to
Yeah.
be wanted women before too terribly long. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking. I think they need to get on the other side of the border while they still have the chance.
Yeah, that would probably be a really good idea. And I mean, they're in New York. They're probably by the Canadian border. Um, but oh man, God, I just have so many thoughts. And
Mhm.
yeah, this I like I am in shock that we went for this long. But if any episode this season would take this long of an episode, I think it's this one for sure.
Hey, you know what? That's why I chose this episode to chat with you about because it's always the penultimate episode, second to the last episode of the season, that's always like the most exciting, the most, popping off, the most ideas to talk about and theorize over. And so, yeah, I was like, all right, we're definitely doing that one.
Yeah. God, I just hope that Bruce and Lisa survive.
And Sammy, or not Sammy, but Steve. Well, Sammy also, but Steve. All
Yeah,
the animals.
yeah,
I mean, R.I.P. Nugget.
yeah.
Caligula. Honestly, I had a real fear at the beginning of the season when things, were theorizing on ideas and that, this and that. I actually had a real fear that Walter was going to kill Caligula, and that was going to be like
No!
part of his arc. Like that was going to set Misty off and she was going to kill him, like something was going to happen there. But I
Caligula
just
did have a Queen of Hearts card in his vanity.
Oh, did he? Hmm, interesting. So,
Mhm.
well, I'll have to include that in my essay.
Yeah, it was, like, propped up on the mirror.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He's the real Queen of Hearts.
Yeah, he is. Did you see my thumbnail for this past week's episode?
Yes, I did. I loved it. And it had Bruce and Caligula in there, right?
Yes. Like, normally, I just put my co-host that week and me in, like, a circle with, like and I, like, distort our faces or whatever, just make it look goofy. But it was just so perfect because it was such a ridiculous episode last week
Mhm.
that I'm like, "Oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna do."
I loved it. I laughed really hard when I saw that. I was
I
like,
think
"Yeah,
I'm gonna redo
Callie."
it though to put I think I'm gonna redo it though to put a beak on on myself
Yeah.
because I meant to do that and I totally forgot and just yeah.
That's hilarious. They did
Yeah.
such a good job, that was a risky game they were playing with that musical number and, like,
Oh, yeah.
dressing up Caligula in a way that we would accept, and it paid off. It was perfect. I loved
It
it.
so did. It was
Mhm.
beautiful. Um, and I can't get that goddamn song out of my head.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap this up. We've already gone way too long. Longest episode ever. Congratulations, you're the record breaker.
Woohoo.
Um, but yeah, so we will sign off and by the time this comes out, you will have already joined me for the live after show. So I will see you guys on Sunday for the finale after show. And we'll have lots to talk about, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So until then, um, Erin, stick around for a second. And everybody else, I'll catch you soon. Peace, love, and yellow jackets, everyone.